actually feel bad.
South Florida, welcome. But look at the upper deck and the standing room only. Hockey's alive and well in South Florida. Give yourselves a hand. Just 1 day short of a year ago, Dale Talon stood in Philadelphia at this podium and called the name of Aaron Ekblad as the Florida Panthers' first-round draft pick, #1 overall at the 2014 NHL Draft. And just 2 nights ago in Las Vegas, Aaron Ekblad's name was called again as the winner of the Calder Memorial Trophy, awarded to the NHL's Rookie of the Year. Dale also told the crowd in Philadelphia that the Florida Panthers look forward to seeing all of you in sunny Florida next year at the NHL Draft. Well, here we are, and we are looking forward to a night of opportunity, renewal, and anticipation. Tonight and tomorrow represent the culmination of years of work by our teams, by hundreds of outstanding young athletes, and the incredible support they have received from their family, friends, teammates, and coaches. The 7 rounds of this draft will serve as a turning point in the careers of these young players, in the lives of their families, and in the futures of their teams. Tonight, we welcome yet another new generation of outstanding talent that will help continue to ensure the success of our league and our game for years to come. So welcome to BBT Center for the 2015 NHL Draft. Welcome to all of you fans here at BBT, to those gathered at viewing parties and watching this event on NBC Sportsnet, Rogers Sportsnet, and TVA, as well as those following tonight's developments on XM NHL Sirius Radio. Thank you, South Florida, for the warm welcome, both outside and inside. And thank you to the Florida Panthers, Vinny Viola, Doug Sifu, Peter Luco, Rory Babich, and Dale Talon, who are committed to building this franchise into an NHL powerhouse. For all of our teams gathered on the floor here, the future stands before you. So let's get started. The first selection of the 2015 National Hockey League Draft belongs to the Edmonton Oilers.
Boy, Gary Bettman knows how to win over a crowd, doesn't he? Back with Mike Johnson, Damian Cox, and Sam Cosentino from the CHL and Sportsnet and Friday Night Hockey. Just a couple of more minutes to wait for Connor McDavid, and then he can finally exhale. It's been an incredible run.
You know, any teenager that could manage to sit through that much patience, I guess he's the one kid who can. You've known him as long as anyone. He's just
it's amazing.
Tremendous young man.
You talk about a generational player, a franchise-changing player. To me, he's a league-changing player. And what does that mean? Yes, we know he has to be fantastic on the ice. He'll take care of that, no question. But it also means all the responsibilities that come along with that off the ice. And for example, as a 17/18-year-old kid, the things that this guy's had to deal with this year are simply phenomenal. You look at the schedule he's had since his season ended back on May 15th against the Oshawa Generals. Check it out. You want to talk about a busy month. He goes to Quebec City on the 28th, hops on our panel for a little bit, collects a whole bunch of awards. They back up the truck to bring those. He goes to the interviews at the Combine.
That little CCM sponsorship deal, yeah, that's worth $1 million. Slip that in there as well. Why not?
He went to his prom.
Yeah. And then,
couple exams trying to graduate high school.
I got to go and watch Game 3 and hang out with Don Cherry and everybody else. I'm going to do some clinics. I'm going to go throw out the first pitch. He's going to attend the draft here tonight, go first overall. And on Monday, he's going to head out to the Oilers prospect camp. I mean, you talk about a league-changing player. Connor McDavid is that guy, not just for what he does on the ice, but for how he handles himself away from the ring.
But knowing what he's going to step into in Edmonton, with the attention that's going to be on him and the way he plays, the way he performs, the spotlight will be so bright. You're Edmonton, you're glad he's been through this because you know he can deal with it.
What are you feeling right now? If you're Connor McDavid, have a listen.
I'm going to throw up, I think. What? I'm going to throw up, I think. No, you're not.
Well, that'd be a splash, but we
Don't do it,
hope he doesn't.
Don't do it.
You know what,
This is a player, though, that's been dissected not just since he was 15, but before that. And that can go one of two ways for a lot of these top prospects.
Well, we've seen it, right? I mean, I remember as far back as Mike Ricci was a guy who went through that. Eric Lindros through that. John Tavares went through that. Sidney Crosby went through it. They're special kids, and it seems as now, particularly in a social media world, you better be a young man who can understand the media part of it, the expectations, and be able to handle it. And for all we've seen, even this year, getting injured, all the talk about him, really able to take it all in, enjoy it, although I think he looks like he could use a vacation, and thrive despite all of that.
But you know what, Damien?
Gravel is what he needs.
Well, when you guys look at the CHL and Hockey Canada, that's why they put the processes in place for the exceptional player. Connor McDavid was one of those exceptional players. And yes, it has really nothing to do with what happens on the ice because they're very well aware of what he can do there. But how is he going to be able to handle everything else? And that's why that process is in place, and that's why Connor McDavid was granted that exceptional status in the first place.
Just another part of why he is exceptional. It's not just about what he can do on the ice. It's who he is as a kid, as a young man, that's enabled him to be as good and as great as he's become.
Looks like Edmonton's not going to call a timeout here, Darren. I think they know what they want.
His first meeting with Edmonton at the Combine lasted 25, 30 minutes, he said. They just kind of talked about some general stuff, and then he left. He kind of was surprised that they didn't talk a little bit longer, but they're going to have plenty more time to get to know each other. 4,830 kilometers between the BP&T Center and Rexall Place. That's the next stop.
First of all, on behalf of the Edmonton Oilers organization, we'd like to thank the warm city of Florida and the Florida Panthers organization for being great hosts. We'd also like to shout out to our fans at the draft party at Rexall Place and our new AHL partners in Bakersfield. And with that being said, the Edmonton Oilers would like to select with their first pick from the Erie Otters, Connor McDavid.
You know, guys, last year at the draft in Philadelphia, Connor McDavid didn't go. He didn't want to upstage anyone, and that's part of his personality. But it gets a little more interesting after that as well. Not only did Connor McDavid not go to the draft last year, he didn't watch it either. Don't forget, growing up, when he first started playing hockey, he always played 1 year up. So he played against Michael Delcole with Vaughn, with Sam Bennett and Josh Hosang. And in some ways, last year may have represented to him the first time he had been left behind. But today, he officially becomes a star and welcome into the National Hockey League.
I like that sweater. This is how much he's got control of the situation, though. He said the finish line is not the draft. Even though everybody's been looking forward to this moment for so long, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Well, I mean, absolutely, and this is the beginning of the process. He's a good player, but he's also entering the National Hockey League at a time where it's a very low scoring time. And that's going to be a challenge for him to do those kinds of things that expectations are so high in Edmonton now at a time when so much is changing.
But he's going to be fortunate. I know Edmonton struggled, and they've struggled for a long time, but as far as line mates, he'll be playing with some pretty talented players. They have Taylor Hall, they have Jordan Eberle, they got some pretty good guys that he'll be able to dissect and slice and dice like he did in Erie.
But think about it. Now you go with junior guys and the pucks behind them or in front of them, they don't get it. These National Hockey League guys will find pucks within 8 feet. They'll be able to convert so many of the chances that Connor McDavid is going to be able to create.
And what makes him exceptional? I mean, people are obviously extremely excited. Edmonton, a new rink coming, new management, everything. But what makes Connor McDavid exceptional? First 3 steps.
Yeah.
That's terrible video. I know.
Yeah, so if we didn't see your boy Steve Eisman.
I did see him, but I didn't talk to him.
The game just gets faster and faster in many ways. You get faster to your feet, faster your hand, faster your head. He's all those things.
There he is.
He's officially an Edmonton Oiler. George?
Thanks, Darren. Well, Connor, Darren saying you are officially an Edmonton Oiler. Now what's going through your mind?
This is unbelievable. I mean, there's no words to describe what I feel right now. It's so surreal.
Your parents, when you get the hug, what did they say to you? What did that hug feel like?
That was amazing. I mean, for them to be here for me in this moment, I mean, they've been there all along, and I only have 3 people, but the long list of people that are here goes on, and the long list of people who helped me get to this point is, it's absolutely amazing. I'm very, very grateful to have them in my life.
Peter Shirley's talking about tempering expectations now. Now that all the hype is done, and here you are, you've been drafted, you're an NHL player. How do you feel about the expectations?
It's something that I've been dealing with for a long time now, and there's nothing I can do about them. The hardest person on me is me, and my expectations exceed any of those put on me. So I'm just going to do the best that I can.
Oh, pick is in for.
See, this is going to be.
But remember, they all have to do this form.
That is the fourth first of all selection for the Edmonton Oilers in the last 6 months.
So are they just going to knock when they're ready to come in?
I'm
We should
gonna
leave
go
the
out.
door
We can
a
open the
little
door. We
ajar.
can
Yeah,
open the door.
let's
I
leave
was
it
just
open.
doing that to check Mike's.
Yeah, because I don't want them to forget about us.
No, for sure.
The general manager of the Boston Bruins.
Okay, there he's going to his next thing, and he's coming here soon.
Yeah,
And what
I just wanna
about,
open that,
so if you're stuck with somebody and it's somebody that I need to talk to too,
You should
want me to do it
first.
first?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
First overall pick,
He's going
Connor
to
McDavid
Catherine.
as the GM of the Edmonton Oilers. First.
Thank you. Here we go, everybody. The man who gets to say Connor McDavid is an Edmonton Oiler. How does that feel to be the player?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, as an organization, we're lucky to have this pick.
Sorry.
I guess that's what the lottery does.
Just in case.
But this kid's a special player.
Congrats.
I'm shocked.
From what I know of him,
Yeah,
he's a real
never saw it coming.
special kid too. He's got a lot of great characteristics. Dynamic player, but he's got a passion, and I saw that in the playoffs. And as I said up there, we're fortunate to get him, and look forward to being part of the organization.
We know that one of the things that make this sport so great is that one guy isn't enough to change the team.
Dark was cool for a while, but the classic blue and orange that what Gretzky was wearing is a good look.
That's a key word, Bill, because
they have
we're in the middle
NBC, TVA, NHL Network.
These are all the people, all the places they have to go first.
tempering expectations a little bit with Connor, and I'll do it with you. He's got to get his feet wet.
Can you pull a little more?
Rogers interview too, yeah. So there's
There you go.
at least 4 or 5 ahead of us.
It's good, sure.
But
It's good.
I'll wait
It's
out
good
there
dress.
just in case.
Peter Shirley, the man who runs the Edmonton Oilers. You go back to the podium.
The white one would have been too bland.
Too bland, I agree.
Yeah.
Just look
And
at anything else.
match the chair too much, right?
Yeah, no, this is a good call.
Yeah.
Just some of the other dresses also.
Yeah, they're doing
No.
NHL Network right now.
Okay.
Because that's NHL Network.
So,
No, that's NBC, so we may be close.
okay, so Amanda, if you can't,
Two of our predetermined draft status.
Buffalo selects Jack Eichel.
Jack Eichel was on skates at 3, played hockey at 4. He met Connor at the Combine for the first time.
Yeah, that's right.
Walked across the street and they shook hands. And Connor McDavid said it was kind of strange, and Jack Eichel reiterated that, saying it felt like we already knew each other.
Well, they'll be compared for an awful long time, but Jack Eichel, tons of belief in himself, tons of confidence. As a guy who played college, I have such an appreciation for what he was able to do at his age, playing against kids who are 21, 22, 23, physically stronger, weight room strong, and yet to win the Hobey Baker 71 points, first guy since Paul Kariya. Got a little bit of Ryan Getzlaf in his game, that big right-handed shot center. He had an incredible season against grown-ups.
Well, not only that, he then went after that season and played in the World Championships. After playing in the World Junior Championship, but played in the World Championships. He is NHL ready. We've talked so much about Connor McDavid and a lot about the trades and everything that's happened. I feel like we haven't talked enough about this guy because he has all the earmarks of an NHL star and a kid who embraces his blue-collar background, where he comes from. He's a personality as well.
If that's the consolation prize, I'll take it all day. But you know what? Connor McDavid impacted Jack Eichel as a player. You go back to the 2013 under-18s, McDavid 16 minutes a game, led it with 14 points. Canada wins a gold medal. Jack Eichel's playing for the U.S. as an underager at that time. Don Granato's the coach. He can't get him in the lineup on a regular basis, and so he looks at Connor McDavid, comes back the next year, and he turns into the player he is now.
Back to the podium.
Colorado trades Ryan O'Reilly and Jamie McGinn to Buffalo in exchange for Nikita Zadorov, Mikhail Grigorenko, and J.D. Comfer, and pick number 31 in the 2015 NHL Draft. The third selection in the 2015 NHL Draft belongs to the Arizona Coyotes.
That's impressive. You draft Jack Eichel, then you make a major trade.
Well, think about what they have now. They have Jack Eichel stepping in here. Ryan O'Reilly, a great center. Sam Reinhart coming along. Gergensen's their all-star. All these guys can play center. All are incredibly young, and they gave up a lot. Zadorov was a first-rounder a couple years ago, but they've grown to think of his act. Grigorenko back with Patrick Roy, who coached him in Quebec City.
Yeah, see, that's the really neat element to this. And I know Nikita Zadorov was a guy that they really worried about. Came in there with such a big head, a big ego. Maybe he was given a little bit too much too early. But when you go out and acquire a guy like Ryan O'Reilly, it's not just what you get on the ice. The leadership he's going to bring to what is a young rebuilding hockey club, I don't think you can say as too much about what Ryan O'Reilly's going to bring to the Buffalo Sabres.
Well, and clearly the Buffalo Sabres are not intending to do what the Edmonton Oilers did, and that's that draft first overall 4 years, 5 years in a row. Tim Murray's got this one, and he's intending to get into the playoffs next year with a team that already has some talented players. He's dealing away futures already. He's not sitting back. He's going out and getting hockey players.
And in relation to Jack Eichel, it's nice to have a guy who's as good as Ryan O'Reilly, whether he's a 1A, 1B, whatever you want to call them, that Jack Eichel won't be the sole focus of the offense, the number one center that has to drive everything. Right. Have another guy who's a very good player, good defensively as well, that he can work with in his first year.
Yeah, and leg one, you know, like another veteran player to help out.
One thing
Eichel
to consider, though. Eichel wears number 9. And we talked about whether or not he would request number 9 in Buffalo. And Tim Murray said that probably wouldn't be a good idea, knowing that Evander Kane has it. Here's Jack Eichel with George.
All right, thank you very much, Darren. Okay, so it is. Pressure's off. Now, we've already spoken today, and you were nervous. How do you feel now?
I'm kind of speechless. It's dream come true. It's an unbelievable feeling to be here with my family and just to go through this whole experience and be a part of an organization like the Buffalo. But, you know, to finally have this jersey on, it's a special feeling.
And, you know, while you were walking off the stage just after your selection, the commissioner announces the trade, and Ryan O'Reilly is the Sabre.
Yeah, I mean, kind of crazy how that all just went down, but, you know, I think that just speaks to the Sabres organization and, you know, how bad they really want to, you know, bring success to Buffalo.
And you got a coach, you know a lot about Bilesma. What do you think that relationship's going to be like in the NHL?
It's going to be great. I mean, I couldn't be happier to, you know, have, you know, Coach Bilesma, you know, as the Sabres coach. I think, you know, he knows how to win. Obviously, he's won. He's coached great players. Building a relationship with him at the World Championships in Czech Republic was something special. So it's really nice to have him.
What number are you going to ask for? Congratulations. Jack Eichel, back to the panel. Gentlemen.
Things going according to script. Yeah. Until now at number 3, Arizona. If they keep it, it looks like they're going to now. Who do they take?
Who are they taking, Sammy?
I think it's Dylan Strome. I mean, we talked about this size up the middle that all the NHL teams covet now, and I think he's the guy. I mean, it'll be fascinating if things shake up a little bit. Maybe they go with Hanifin. I still think Strome is the guy, but when I look at the top 12 picks in this draft, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of variance between any team's list, but things get crazy at 13 because Boston has 3 picks in a row.
Arizona has needed a skilled centerman for a really long time. They've been searching for one for a decade.
Well, they had one, Kyle Turris, and they couldn't keep him.
Kyle Turris didn't play like a super skilled centerman when he was down there in Arizona, that's for sure. So they're hoping to finally fill that number 1 center spot if they go with Dylan Strome.
And another team that was looking for a big number 1 center, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Looks like they're not going to get Dylan Strome if this is the way it goes. That's a disappointment to them, but still some pretty good hockey players left.
What do you like the most about his skill set?
You know what he's got? A big shot. Yeah. Sammy, you saw him a lot this year. He's got an NHL shot already.
I love his poise and patience with the puck. He really takes the game to the opposition over across the blue line, and then he sits back, he waits, he looks for his best options. Once his skating ability improves, he'll have a lot more options to add.
I'd like to say a big hello and thank you to our great fans at Gila River Arena in Glendale, Arizona. Thanks for your continual support. The Arizona Coyotes are pleased to select from the Erie Otters of the OHL, Dylan Strome.
Well, the Arizona Coyotes have drafted a 6'3" centerman from the Erie Otters, and they may have, in some ways, drafted the next Alex Burrows in the NHL. This young man, much like Alex Burrows, is an exceptional ball hockey player. Friends and family say that he's obsessed with it. I talked with his brother who plays with the Islanders, Ryan Strome, the other day, and he said it's all that he wants to do. He's always out on the street playing road hockey. They play best of sevens against Mitch Marner. His name's going to come up shortly in this draft. And also the McLeod family. That's an OHL family in Mississauga. And only recently, Darren, have they found a proper boxed rink to play in. They've been doing it old school, taking it to the road.
Yeah, the Con Strome Trophy and everything. They just finished the best of 7. I'm blown away that they didn't put it off until after the draft, but they started, and Dylan was in goal. And he was terrible. And he pulled himself and put Mitch Marner in goal, and they ended up winning the best of 7.
But this is another exceptional hockey family, and we're seeing this more and more, it seems. Families not just able to develop one NHL caliber prospect or talent, but 2 or 3, like the Stahl family of Thunder Bay. You look at Ryan now playing for the New York Islanders, older brother of Dylan, younger brother Matt, drafted high in the OHL draft. He's going to play probably for Hamilton. This is an exceptional family in terms of developing hockey talent.
Well, Ryan goes 5th. Dylan goes 3rd. That means number 1 for Matt Strome.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a little too heady for him. But when you look at Trish Strome, the mother, Chris Strome, the father, they were having to get up at all hours of the morning just to feed these guys. I mean, got to make the steaks, got to get the chicken going, got to get the pasta going. And to think that literally waking up at 3:30 in the morning to feed these 3 monsters, it's pretty cool to see how the entire family is dedicated to the game.
And don't you think that the way he captured the OHL scoring title on the last night,
Love
6
that.
points, what he did, said, I'm ready for the big stage.
Took it away from his best buddy.
The one question might be about his skating. He's not as explosive as the first couple of guys, but the talent, the hands, and the head will mitigate maybe a little bit of lack of the foot speed.
As you can tell, he's with George.
All right, thanks, guys. All right, man, Arizona Coyote. The jersey's over your head right now. The moment you hear your name, what's going through your head?
Relief, I guess. You know, it's been a long process and a long year, but you know, I'm so proud and honored to to be selected by Arizona. It's you know, I'm at a loss for words. It's just unbelievable.
What were your meetings like with the Coyotes when you spoke with them?
Very intense. You know, I got the feeling that maybe I was in their range, and you know, I didn't feel that from many other teams. So you know, it was pretty cool to to finally get that your name called, and you know, it feels amazing.
How much do you know about the Coyotes roster, or does the research start now?
I know a lot of you know, I love stats and stuff like that, so I know quite a bit. You know, I'm just excited to get started.
Cool. Congratulations, man. What a pleasure to see you.
Thank you very much.
Well done. There you go. Dylan Strome, everybody. Darren Millard, back to you, sir.
2 Erie Otters in the first 3 picks of the 2015 NHL first round here on Sportsnet. Toronto now steps up with the 4th selection, and it's been back and forth. The internal negotiations. Remember, there's no general manager. This is management by committee. Defenseman or forward. If it is a defenseman, Noah Hannafin.
He's the guy rated higher. I know they like Provorov right there as well. You know, Mark Hunter had Mitch Marner, but you know, if you go down the road of Hannafin, a guy who can play big minutes, skates exceptionally well, you know he's going to be an NHLer, maybe a bit more of a safe pick, whereas Mitch Marner, upside might be higher, but maybe not quite as guaranteed to do what Noah Hannafin could do.
Well, you look at where the Hunters go. They always go with skill. Patrick Kane, Corey Perry, that's their thing, and I think that's not going to change here with this pick. The number one thing you have is intelligence on a player. You know his character, you know his family, you know his work ethic, you know what he does away from the rink. We talk about the 2 buzzwords in the National Hockey League being character and compete. Mark Hunter, better than anyone, knows whether or not Mitch Marner has that. If they take him, they will be satisfied with all of those things.
One exciting thing about if they take Mitch Marner, is he thinks he's so much the next Patrick Kane. He watched over 70 games of Kane this year, looking how he plays the game, how he's elusive, how he stays away, how he creates. People out there think he might be a superstar, despite the fact late in the season, this kid weighed 150 pounds.
But the way the league's headed, it's about brains, it's about skill, it's about puck possession. And William Nylander last year was maybe a step in that direction for this.
But he's also a local guy. And there's always seems to be this concern about a Toronto kid being able to handle that pressure.
I was a Toronto kid. I mean, I played at a different time. It's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot.
So how much was the pressure, though?
Oh, you know, if you do okay, it's fine. If you struggle, but you know what? Most of the pressure you put on yourself is self-inflicted. And if you play poorly, it's not going well, you're beating yourself up. If you are,
like, it ate up David Clarkson.
Yeah,
it's not for everyone, but it's for most.
And I think one of the things we've met with the Marner family and talked to them in the last few days. They are hoping that he might be drafted by the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're excited to think he could be that kind of a player for the Leafs.
You know what I love? In that first round against Kitchener, he went to Dale Hunter and said, you know what? I want to play center here. He was playing on the wing, and he said, just to try and mix things up and give my team a better chance, make it harder to match up against, I want to play center.
Mark Hunter.
I'd like to say thank you to the Florida Panthers organization for the hospitality this week. I'd like to say thanks to all the fans at the Leafs Nation draft party at Maple Leaf Square. I'm proud to announce from the London Knights, Mitch Marner.
Dylan Strome and Mitch Marner go back-to-back. Best friends.
I think
just like the scoring race. Dylan Strome won.
No, they didn't used to be pals. Mitch Marner's actually really close friends with Lawson Krause, who we're going to see picked in a little bit while. Strome and Marner used to be sort of at each other, and they became friends. But this is a really, and we talked about this, this is going to be a window into what's going on in the Toronto organization. This is clearly Mark Hunter's pick.
Yes, and I couldn't agree more. You look at when he was drafted into the Ontario Hockey League in 2013. He went 19th overall to London that year. He was 5'7", 130 pounds. So he has grown some since. You look at his parents, is there a huge upside? Is this guy going to be a 6'2" player? No, but he's absolutely dynamic. He edges extremely well, and he can handle the puck at high speeds. It'll be fascinating just to see how he develops.
And that's how he'll get space for himself in the NHL. With that speed and with those hands, you have a little bit of respect. Guys will back off, and you give him any kind of space. He makes some pretty good things happen.
It's no secret his dad pushed him. He was on skates at 2, started focusing on skills at 4.
You know, he's very superstitious as well, guys. Nobody touches his sticks except him and his trainer. And before every game, here's some hard-hitting journalism. While the guys are drinking protein shakes and energy drinks, before every game, he eats a bag of Skittles.
Johnny Gaudreau, right? His dad threw Skittles on the ice, and Johnny had learned to skate trying to track them down.
Marshawn Lynch. Skittles are obviously the food of champions.
Curtis Lazar to come in and eat them all up.
Obviously pointing to his family with Mike Babcock. Interesting that Brendan Shanahan didn't go up to the stage for this pick. That was up on his management group.
And I think he's tried very hard to push the other guys and let them take the spotlight at this draft and in the part of the offseason.
A lot of symbolism there, and there's no question that Mark Hunter has now put his fingerprint all over this hockey club. And we talked earlier in the show about all the voices that would be there. You know, you look at Lindsey Hofford, you look at Kyle Dubas, of course Shanahan, Mike Babcock has got that type A personality. You know he's going to have something to say. And so when you look at the Toronto Maple Leafs now, Mark Hunter has definitely put his fingerprint on it.
Mike Babcock down there, Paul and Bonnie with Mitch Marner's parents saying, hey, I got your boy, I'll take good care of him.
That's one heck of a road hockey game. People are going to be trying to sign their kids up for that thing when you go on back-to-back like that. George.
All right, thank you very much. Here we are. Member of the Toronto Maple Leafs organization now, Mitch Marner. How does that feel, especially as a Toronto boy?
Yeah, you know, it's no really way to put it. Speechless. Happy to be part of the organization and can't wait to start.
You know, so much of this conversation in this draft have been around the top 2 and maybe 3 guys that were going to go, and they generally knew where they were going to go. Did you know where you were going?
No, you know, they kind of kept it quiet on us, and I try to talk to Strome every day, ask him what he's thinking, but we weren't getting too much out of it, and you know, everything panned out, and you know, I think we're both happy where we went.
So in that moment when the name was announced and it was from Mark Hunter as a guy that you know, what was that like?
I think my heart was beating too fast, but it was speechless. You know, it was an awesome moment. He called my name in the OHL draft, and You know, I never thought he would call my name in the NHL draft, but it's exciting and it's a fun time.
And what about playing at home? I know Thornhill, Thornhill people might say, no, we're a separate place, but what's it going to be like to be part of that city?
I don't think there's any way to put it. You know, I wanted to play with this team my whole life. I've grown up watching this team, and you know, it's just speechless that I'm here now, and you know, I get a chance to wear this Maple Leaf.
What a pleasure. Good to see you, man.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mitch Marner. Back to you, gentlemen.
There's Mom and Dad. I want to let you in on a little secret. Mitch did tell me that when he plays for the Toronto Maple Leafs, if he was drafted by them, he was moving out. he was not sticking around for the free room aboard.
You know what, though? There's something, too, that you talk about playing in Toronto for a guy who's from Toronto. Maybe he's got to move out of his parents' house, but the fact that he's got that guy right there, Mark Hunter, you know you have someone who's got your back, that you've trusted. You have a relationship that's pre-existing your time in the NHL, and there will be a comfort level for him being part of that organization for all that entails, which helps someone as young as he is.
Well, I mean, a lot of it depends on, we say, you know, some prospects make it, some don't. A lot of it depends where you go. Mitch Marner's going to an organization that is now putting a premium on skill. They want to change. Remember, this is a team that only a couple years ago would dress 2 enforcers for a game. It was all about brawn and muscle. The turnover in Toronto to a skill-based, speed-based type of organization has been lightning fast, and that's the organization that Mitch Marner's joining.
Who's better to continue to develop that skill than Dale Hunter? Look at all the guys he's pumped out in the National Hockey League, and when you're brothers with Mark, you do have some element of control over that development further. So it is absolutely the perfect fit for Mitch Marner.
Round out the top 5. The Carolina Hurricanes are up next. What do they need?
Well, this is, I think, worked out pretty well for them.
They should be sprinting right now.
Because I would imagine that Noah Hanifin he's there for him, and he's likely the pick. Ivan Provorov as well, but Hanifin at 5 could be like Seth Jones when he fell a little less or far in his draft year.
He went 4th in 2013. Nashville nearly broke ankles running up to the podium, and Carolina should be doing the same thing.
The Carolina Hurricanes at number 5 of the National Hockey League draft here in Sunrise, Florida. Here's Ron Francis.
Carolina Hurricanes are proud to select from Boston College, Noah Hanifin.
Like it had to sink in a little bit.
Did he not hear that word? Yeah, it's you. You can get up there.
Boy, that's a long way from Froggy's Pond in Norwood
to
the National Hockey League and a top 5 pick.
And to me, this is the first indication of just how good this draft is. When a kid like this, who was the youngest player to ever play at Boston College, he's been a leader everywhere along the way for the United States whenever he's played, and all the abilities. He's a tremendous skater, a two-way player. When he's the 5th pick in his draft year, it's a tremendous draft year.
No question. I mean, like I said, a full sprint to get up there to get him. Here's what I like about this guy. All the interviews we did, he's going through the car wash at the Combine. Maybe one of the best interviews for anybody. You talk to all the National Hockey League teams. They said the same thing about him. And when you look at his style of play, he's a guy that can do everything for you. But what I like most about him is the fact that he rushed through all summer last year to take a full year of school so that he could go to Boston College a year earlier than everybody else. I mean, that says a lot about his character to me.
Jeff?
You know what, guys, as well, while a lot of young kids can't wait for new gear, can't wait to try on new skates and shoulder pads, have a look at this picture of Noah Hanifin. These are the shoulder pads he used this year at BC. It's from his freshman year at St. Sebastian, wearing the same stuff since he was 14 years old. He says, I don't like new equipment. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of scared of it.
Eventually, don't you grow out of it?
No,
no. Forget just liking it.
Keep going.
Apparently not.
Well, it's been pretty according to script, except for that. He was the most surprised guy. Noah Hanifin, a member of the Carolina Hurricanes, as the NHL continues on Sportsnet.
Shocking. Hey, you should be very proud of yourself. This is awesome. Welcome to the NHL.
Thank you. Honor, welcome, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Thanks.
Welcome to the Oilers, man.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Most of us will never experience that. Taking you inside the National Hockey League draft, Sport Check Draft Recap. Connor McDavid goes 1st overall. Dylan Strome, the Erie Otters, 3rd overall to the Arizona Coyotes, and Mitchell Marner to the Toronto Maple Leafs. London Night Connection. Mitch Marner and Mark Hunter, who's with George.
What was it like? Because this wasn't a no-brainer pick. So what was it like in this Leaf organization?
Well, it was a big debate because there's some real good hockey players in that area. I mean, you had Strome. We didn't know if they were going to take Strome, and then of course you have Mitch, and then you had Anavan. So I mean, we were pretty excited about getting Mitch, but there was conversation where other people, like Dylan Strome. So it was good.
What is it about Mitch Marner that you think works?
I think he's got elite hockey sense, and he's got great character, and he's a will to drive, will to win.
Pleasure to see you, Mark. Thanks so much. Mark Hunter.
Thank you very much, George. Back here with Mike Johnson, Damien Cox, and Sam Cosentino from Friday Night Hockey, the CHL on Sportsnet. New Jersey Devils are up now at number 6. This is an organization that's gone through a massive management upheaval.
It'll be strange to see Lou Lamoriello not being the guy to go up there and make this pick, or have David Conti or be the, pass it off to him. They're a team with a lot of needs. They've really, taken a step backwards. This is an opportunity for them. They've got Steve Santini coming, a young defenseman. They've got John Quenville with Brandon, but they really need something of everything. They could go defense. They could go forward. They've got some real choices here. I think this is part of the draft where things start to go, I don't know where we're going next.
Boy, I'd have a hard time not going with Ivan Provorov. I mean, personally, I felt he's the best defenseman in this draft. You're not going to go wrong with Noah Hannafin, but when you're comparing those two players, it's really comparing apples to apples. There's just a little more shine on one, and it's whatever your flavor tends to be. But I'd have a hard time seeing them not go with Provorov.
Offense or defense, if it's Provorov, very good, can play. Might be most NHL ready of anybody available. Forward, Pavel Zacha out of Sarnia, also a potential pick here for the Devils who like to go get interesting.
Ray Sherrill.
On behalf of the New Jersey Devils, thank you to Vinny Viola and the Florida Panthers, and Aaron Ekblad for Rookie of the Year. And the New Jersey Devils, I'd like to introduce David Conti, our Director of Scouting, to make our selection number 6 in this entry draft. New Jersey is proud to select from the Sarnia Sting, Pavel Zacha.
Now, here's where it gets interesting again with the next pick with Ivan Provorov, who Sam was just talking about sitting there. I mean, first we should talk about this young guy, Pavel Zacha, but Philadelphia's next, and they've already got lots of young defensemen. This guy, to me, is one of the really impressive young guys in the draft. Speaks spectacularly fluent English. Fired his agent last year when his agent kind of decided to go his own way, and he said, no, I want to come to North America and I want to play for the Sarnia Sting. And even through a year in where he was suspended twice, he was injured, he had to really battle through a lot of adversity, and Pavel Zacha is now the kind of #1 center, I think, or left winger, depending on where you like him, the Devils really need.
And you talk about coming over, he was encouraged to come over here by Peter Nedved, longtime NHLer Peter Nedved said,
Played together.
If you want to get over there and you want to get to the NHL, the fastest and best way to do it is not to stay over here in the Czech Republic, but get over and play in the CHL, train yourself well. He talked about his English. Anybody who masters his English,
I know,
from watching the movie Dumb and Dumber, it's a top pick in my book every single day.
Okay,
I love that.
On the heels of that, I was just really hoping that he would be drafted by the Boston Bruins and meet Cam Neely, Seabass, and that connection. That he's now a New Jersey Devils, was at one time a professional tennis player as well. So there's some real athletic ability.
Well, and again, I touched on it. He was looked at as a center all year long, played center in Sarnia all year long, but then went to the World Under-18s and played left wing and right wing. He's a big guy, and it'll be interesting to see how the Devils see him, what position they see him, Sam.
I'll tell you where he made his mark. And you go back to that first-round playoff series against Connor McDavid and the Erie Otters. That was a 5-game series. Sarnia gave Erie fits, and that really shouldn't have been a matchup whatsoever. But Pavel Zacha was matched up against Connor McDavid that entire series. He held him to 6 points in 5 games, which is still a point a game, but compared to what McDavid did after that, 2.5 points per game, Zacha did a great job with him. That's where he made his mark.
Pavel Zacha is now a member of the New Jersey Devils. Ron Hextall has ties to Brandon and Ivan Provorov. Go down that path next. The Flyers are up.
Except they've all...
When I was younger, putting in all the hours, that's what I was doing. I was just simply playing. As a kid, just to be able to play, the game you love is amazing. And if you can grow up and still play the game you love, that's even better.
Welcome back into the BB&T Center. Live coverage of the 2015 NHL Draft on Sportsnet, presented by Sport Check. The number 8 pick, the Philadelphia Flyers, and General Manager Ron Hextall, very honest, saying this is a critical draft for the Flyers. They have to hit it here. They will take the best player available.
Right, and now they have a group of good young defensemen already. They have Samuel Morin, they have Gotterspeer, they have Sanheim, they have Hag. So they, you would think, would go forward. Now, if we get into a bit of the draft strategy here, that would leave Columbus, who was looking to trade up with a number 3 pick, which may end up with Ivan Provorov without having to trade anything to get it.
Although,
if they go with Rantanen, Krause, Meyer, Philadelphia.
Good thing is Philly needs defensemen badly at the NHL level. So can't get enough quality ones. With Provorov sitting for him, it'd be very tempting to go to a place of need and get what many people think is the best available player right now.
Mentioned that Ron Hextall played for the Brandon Wheat Kings. Still has ties in Brandon with Kelly McCrimmon and that organization, Provorov.
He may decide he can't have enough young defensemen and take Provorov.
Ron Hextall about to make the next selection in the NHL Draft.
Philadelphia selects from the Western Hockey League's Brandon Wheat Kings, Ivan Provorov.
You are going to hear about a couple of incredible journeys by draft eligible players tonight. This is one of those.
Well, no question. I mean, he comes over from Russia. He goes to Wilkes-Barre, plays with guys from all over the place. They end up winning a national championship there. Then he goes into the USHL as the youngest player, has some great success there. Kelly McCrimmon steals him late in the CHL import draft. And then he goes there and does everything asked of him. Kelly McCrimmon says, this guy is so coachable. I mean, there's no holes in his game. Absolutely none.
And the amazing thing about Ivan Provorov is he started the year as a B prospect on NHL Central Scouting and just shot up. He was at 10 at the midterm and just kept going. Why? So smart. Smart defenseman. He can play both ends. He can, take the puck up. He can make the first pass. Had 61 points, as many as any other rookie in the Western Hockey League.
Bring in Jeff Merrick.
And you know what? Somewhere, guys, Mike Keenan is smiling. We all know that Coach Keenan loved his defensemen to play with extra long sticks. This young man from the Brandon Wheat Kings has a 4-inch extension on the end of his. Feels to give him a lot more extra whip on his shots. And yes, one of the great journey stories in this year's NHL Draft, guys.
From Russia at 14. But he was already making the trip into Moscow from Yaroslavl every weekend to play. So there's a lot of miles on this hockey player. His first hockey memory, scored a goal against a Moscow team shorthanded. So score on Moscow was a big thing.
And you start talking about guys at this point in the draft and who maybe could play in the NHL quickly. This guy might be it. He might be as NHL ready as anyone outside of maybe McDavid and Eichel to step in next year, and there may be opportunity there in Philly.
I'm with you, Mike, and maybe he's already surpassed the guys, such as Moran and Travis Sanheim that you talked about. Here's the one thing that I really love about him, and I'll go back to one of our Friday night hockey games. They're playing against Calgary in the Saddle Dome. They're on the power play. He goes behind the net, sets up shop, and he realizes that the Calgary Hitmen changed their penalty kill formation as he's going up the ice. Well, they continues to open up. The C's party makes a couple of moves and ends up with a wonderful finish on a goal. Here it is right here. Just goes to show you that this guy processes the game so quickly, and that's what you have to do. It also tells me another thing, that no truer words have been spoken that you take the best player available regardless of all the defensemen that Philly has in their system right now.
8 on long-term contracts.
The new way to play defense in NHL, almost the most important skill is being able to pass the puck. And that outlet pass, getting out of your own end, and he is very, very good at that. So
bit of a mean streak, too.
Well, I was going to say, the difference between him and Hanifin, a little bit more physical, even though he's not as big as Noah Hanifin.
Doesn't think he has a weak point, but does say he can get better. Born on the same day as Connor McDavid. January 13th, 1997. There's Connor McDavid meeting his coach. Columbus is up next on Sportsnet. Back inside BB&T Center in Sunrise, Florida, home of the Florida Panthers, the National Hockey League first round draft here on Sportsnet. We've arrived at selection number 8, the Columbus Blue Jackets, who had to watch Hanifin go and Provorov go So where do they go?
Well, I think they've got Zach Werenski, the big defenseman out of the University of Michigan, sitting down there. Very talented offensive defenseman who can do a lot of things with the puck. They may have coveted the other two guys, but if they take Werenski here, they're going to be pretty happy with that.
They need defensemen. They have so many forward side, too many forwards. They need some D.
And Mike Riley, their defenseman they drafted earlier, signed with Minnesota today, as they felt he would. So they, again, their need is on the back end.
Yeah, it's going to be it's almost a no-brainer for me here, because after Werenski, that tier of defensemen now drops, as you talked about earlier, Damon, into about that 14-15 range. And so if you want that guy, you better get him right here.
He would be the third NCAA player taken in the first round. It's never happened in the first round before, never mind in the top 10. John Davidson.
Thank you very much, sunny South Florida and the Florida Panthers. You've been great hosts. I would like to say hello to our fantastic fans at Nationwide Arena in Columbus. Have a great time, gang. And to make our choice, I'd like to call our head amateur scout, Vili Sirin. Vili.
Columbus Blue Jackets are proud to select from University of Michigan, Jack Werenski.
Older brother Brad, mom Kristen, dad Ken. A moment. Another player that went to college early.
Yeah. And another guy
to play at that level.
Had to accelerate his schooling to get into University of Michigan. Bright guy. He's still 17 years old. He's not about young. And again, playing against guys 5, 6, 7 years older than him in college, test him as a defensive defenseman, and he showed well this year at Michigan.
On a not a very good Michigan team. And, you know, the links between players in this draft. He was paired with Noah Hannafin while playing in Ann Arbor at the U.S. National Team Development Program. Mitch Marner's been after him to say, come and play up with us with the London Knights, and probably will want to do that even more. So these guys all know each other. A lot of people really believe in this kid. He's one of them that, one of the defensemen that people go, or they go, he's the best one. So we'll see how it turns out in a few years. What we do know in the NHL draft, often the first defenseman taken hasn't proven out to be the best. And as you said, 17 years old, pretty hard to judge him at that point.
Hannafin and Provorov are right on that line, maybe above it, to play in the National Hockey League next year. How about Werenski?
I don't think so. I don't think he's there quite yet. I mean, he's going to have a ton of options. Is he going to go to London and play there if he signs? Or is he going to end up going back to the University of Michigan and take his time there? That might work well for Columbus, too.
One interesting thing about this kid that really sets him apart, he prides himself on his low penalty minutes.
Yeah.
Very unusual for a defenseman. He took 8 minutes in penalties last year with the Wolverines. It's a big part of it. The other thing I can say about him from personal experience, he must be a very young man, because he's staying in the next room from me at the hotel, and it's been quiet the whole week. So
that'll change tonight for you.
I really appreciate that, Zach. I really do.
How about this? He got into hockey when his dad saw an ad for skating lessons. So he was hanging out with his older brother's team. They needed a defenseman, and Dad just tossed him out there. And it comes to this. Great move, Pops. Cap of the top 10 here in the National Hockey League 2015 NHL Draft on Sportsnet. Connor McDavid, Jack Eichel, 1-2. Dylan Strome went 3. Then the run of defensemen. Zachary Werenski going to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Louis DeBrusque is with us, the father of Jake, and wearing a microphone with us tonight. Jake, tabbed to be a first-round pick. What's the vibe there as you guys sit as a family?
You know what, pretty much so far we've been debating some of the picks. We can hear you guys a little bit too, and you know what we've kind of expected, and just going through the motions. And we've seen these players a lot this year. I've paid special attention to this draft for obvious reasons, and yeah, so far things are good. Things have gone pretty smoothly so far, I think.
So you trying to distract Jake and keep him calm, or?
I think we're distracting each other. We're just enjoying the moment. You know what I mean? We're just sitting here around some great hockey talent here. He's paid close attention to the players that are involved in the draft, and we're just enjoying it.
David,
tell them all about being picked up by the Rangers. I appreciate this, Louis.
All right, guys, no problem.
Get back to you. Family sits there. Wow. And we appreciate that taking us inside, but you're going through and you're waiting. You're waiting.
Imagine sitting there as the dad.
I'd be nervous the whole time, but I think you'll probably be comfortable until you probably get in the range where you think you might be going, and then you'd get pretty nervous.
So we've gone through the three big defensemen. Now I think we get into the range of the three big power forwards. Lawson Krause, Mikko Rantanen, and Timo Meier. Meier, 44 goals with Halifax this year. Sam, 10 more in the playoffs. A Swiss product, pretty interesting player.
San Jose missed the playoffs for the first time since 2009. They need some impact players.
And they need leadership. And so if they go with Lawson Krause, not that he's going to walk in and be a captain right away, but you can see him being that Gabriel Landeskog type of player where maybe at 20 years old, he becomes the captain of your hockey club.
He might not put up the same kind of points as the other guys, but as far as being physical, being solid, Lawson Krause is a good, hard power forward in the making.
Meier more of a finisher?
Meier more of a finisher. He's got a great shot, great release, so different directions the Sharks could go.
San Jose would like to say hello to our fans at Stanley's, and with our pick from Halifax, Timo Meier.
Here's another good one. He only played hockey because his buddy next door played hockey. His buddy's dad was an ex-pro and started coaching the team. So the neighbor got him in. I have no idea. He said he has no idea what happened to the neighbor. And
the neighbor will be calling now.
Yeah.
He'll be looking for a cut.
But Timo is now a member of the San Jose Sharks.
Very similar situation to Ivan Provorov. Started the year as a B prospect on NHL Central Scouting, and by midterm was up to middle of the first round. And he really, you know, he's a power forward who can score. Who doesn't need that?
I think when you look at, they worked on his skating stride in the middle of the year. Kelly Klendowski works out of Halifax. In fact, her husband is a scout for the Tampa Bay Lightning, so there's some interesting lineage there. Once he got that figured out, he took off. Really started for him, though, at the World Juniors. Playing for Switzerland, gained a lot of confidence. He comes back a couple of weeks later. I mean, he's over at the Prospects game, the BMO Top Prospects game, and how good was he in that game?
While playing with Travis Konechny and Connor McDavid. Of course, I think, Mike, you could play with Connor McDavid and still look good in the Prospects game.
That might be a stretch, but he had a pretty good line at most of the year as well. And Nicholas Ehlers, the Winnipeg Jets pick, who's a pretty good combo. But there's some things you can teach and some things are hard to learn. And having a nose for the net and knowing how to score, even if you can shoot the puck really well, even if you're big and strong and get there, knowing how to score is a very difficult thing to teach. This guy knows how to do that.
I got to tell you, it's fascinating. So he becomes the 9th pick in the NHL draft, a kid from Switzerland who came over here to play junior hockey. And already we're looking towards next year when we think the #1 pick will be Austin Matthews, who wants to go play in Switzerland next year in his draft year. So that's, you know, I guess it shows you the hockey world's changing.
You see him standing up there taking his picture, though. You get a sense of how big he is. Side Doug Wilson there, taller, thicker, heavier. He's got a more mature, developed
favorite players
physique.
are Sidney and Ovechkin. Where does he fall into a comparable?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. He's more of a power forward type guy. So would you consider Ovechkin to be that guy? On occasion, I guess he is. But Crosby, obviously a more dynamic guy. Is he that guy? He has little bits of both to him, but I really like the fact that he shoots the puck and has an NHL release right now. He'll go up and down the wing, he'll bang, he'll crash. He has no problem playing physically whatsoever. And the interesting thing for me is the Halifax coaching staff really felt so good about his improvement this year that here he is going in the first round, and they still felt that he was their most improved player on the Halifax Mooseheads this year.
Best comparison I've heard, a bigger Thomas Tatar.
Yeah.
Which is kind of an interesting way to look at this young man.
That's some pretty good hands if you're anything like Thomas Tatar.
Yeah.
This evening started with the first overall selection. Connor McDavid joining the Edmonton Oilers, and things move quickly around this, especially when you know exactly what's coming down, like Connor McDavid. Let's go to the Edmonton Oilers draft table and the parameters working on agreement.
Honor on behalf of the Edmonton Oilers organization, our management and staff, our distinguished alumni, and most importantly, our fans at our draft party at Rexall Place, and Oilers fans everywhere. I'd like to welcome you to the Edmonton Oilers organization and the city of Edmonton. As you know from being in the city a couple weeks ago, we're well into construction of Rogers Place, the new home of the Oilers, and the surrounding Edmonton Arena District in the heart of the city of Edmonton. We are thrilled for you to be part of it all and a big part of our future and success moving forward together. Welcome and congratulations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cates. I couldn't be happier to be a part of the Oilers family, and look forward to working with everyone, and can't wait to come to Edmonton to see all you great fans.
How often were you greeted by the owner? Mike?
Never. I was never drafted, so that's really not on the draft floor, but he's a special guy, and a lot of great things happening in Edmonton. New arena, rejuvenating the downtown. Hopefully the team turns around with it, and McDavid will be a big part of it.
Here comes Colorado. And Mike Babcock, we know, had a big say in what Toronto was going to do. Another influential coach is Patrick Waugh.
Well, we had a conversation with Patrick Waugh at the MasterCard Memorial Cup in Quebec City. He was there being honored and speaking engagements. He was very vocal that he wanted a defenseman. He wanted a defenseman at number 10 because he felt his team needs one now.
Yeah.
Now the three big defensemen are gone.
Well, that's the problem. You're not going to get a guy who's going to play anytime soon if you take a defenseman right now, most likely for Patrick Waugh.
They did acquire Zadorov earlier tonight. Yeah, that trade with
That's
Buffalo.
true. So that may now allow them to take a Lawson Krause or a Mikko Rantanen, power forward up front, which could allow them to do. So Rantanen is certainly the big. I mean, he's played in a men's league all year long. He might be NHL ready. He's a mountain of a man, built like a linebacker, and he could be the player there for Colorado.
Well, he's more of a safer guy, but when I look at their head scout, Alan Heppel, who you see in the background behind Patrick Waugh and Joe Sakic, he was just announced a couple of weeks ago. He'd been doing the job since Rick Tracy had been fired, so this is Alan Heppel's time to step up and shine. He's an Ontario-based guy. Lawson Krause, to me, looks like he would be the pick here for Colorado.
And they got another, they went and got Gabriel Landeskog a few years ago, big physical guy. Maybe didn't put up a ton of points. Similar to Lawson Krause, they've had some pretty good success with Landeskog. They go down that road again, look for another power forward that can really get up and down the wing.
Patrick did say they want a right winger. Rantanen is a left-handed shot, plays the right side.
To Joe Sakic.
Colorado Avalanche are proud to select from TPS Turco, Mikko Rantanen.
Season ends on a high note after that dip in the middle where they lost to Sweden at the World Junior Hockey Championship. He said, it's the worst to lose to Sweden.
That's right. He's a big young man, and guess what? His father's a construction worker. He comes from hardy stock, this young man, and they're going to be pretty happy that they've really added a player in the Western Conference who can play that heavy game, Mike.
And any player who can play in one of those European men's league, not the junior league, men's league, and wear an A in that league shows the kind of maturity, the kind of guy he is, the kind of player he is, because that's not a responsibility they give out very lightly over there in Europe. So two-way guy, sometimes compared to Yuri Letnin, which would be a tremendous find if he's anything like that kind of player, but that's the kind of big, heavy game he likes to play.
They call him Hot Wheels. He's got that young-looking face, one of the younger guys on the men's team, and so they call him Hot Wheels. But here's a guy who seems to be a little bit more of a safer pick. Maybe he has more offensive potential than what Lawson Krause would have to offer. But you have to remember also that the Colorado Avalanche have very good presence in Finland, and so maybe that's what swayed them towards going to Rantanen with this pick.
One thing we know is that the World Junior Championships, he was at that time the #2 ranked European player. He came over, played very well, impressed a lot of people. At that time, the #1 ranked European player was the Swedish defenseman Oliver Shillington. He didn't play in the World Juniors. He was hurt. He had a hamstring injury, had a bumpy year in a lot of ways, and it was at that point that Rantanen went past him and became the #1 European player that they were looking at.
They like the fact that he loves to play in the small rink, too.
Yeah.
So that adjustment sped up.
Getting rid of O'Reilly, getting rid of McGinn in that trade, also some of their forward depth.
Top 10 complete. The Florida Panthers, Dale Talon. What will they do with the pick at number 11, the NHL Draft on Sportsnet? Millard back in the 2015 NHL Draft on Sportsnet, presented by Sport Check. Recapping your top 5. Connor McDavid goes first overall, Jack Eichel, and then Dylan Strome making it 2 Erie Otters in the top 5. Noah Hannafin going number 5 to the Carolina Hurricanes, and he's with George.
Here we are with Noah Hannafin now wearing a Hurricanes uniform. How does it feel?
Feels unbelievable. You know, it's an honor to be drafted by this organization. You know, my mindset going into this draft is be ready for anything. You know, anything can happen, and you know, I wanted to go to a team that wanted me, and you know, obviously Carolina saw something in me, and I'm going to work as hard as I can for this organization.
What do you think it is they saw?
You know, I'm not sure. You know, I thought my interviews with them went really well. You know, I think all the teams, you know, saw something in me on the ice, but you know, I think the most important thing was, you know, I think I had a good vibe with all the scouts and the GM, Ron Francis there. So, yeah, I'm just really excited to be a part of this.
What's the interview process like? Because it's probably more strange than anything you've done.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously pretty tough. You know, they really want to know who you are as a person. You know, because you know this is obviously a big pick for some of these teams, and it's a big deal. And you know, they want the kid that will best suit their organization.
George, thank you. Back with Mike Johnson, Damian Cox, and Sam Cosentino, entering the middle portion of the 2015 NHL draft. The Florida Panthers will pick next. That's why the building has come alive. But we're also watching Lawson Crouse sit there, and there was a lot of belief that he would go inside that top 10.
Oh, I think earlier in the year he was inside the top 5, and it's unfair in a way because he didn't do anything wrong. Other players maybe surpassed him. The question about him is how he finished, but again, this is a big kid. Sam has seen him a lot. He's 6'4", 215 pounds, 29 goals. They call him the Sheriff, Sam. Why do they call him that?
No, he takes care of everybody out there. Yeah. All of his teammates. Christina Rutherford of Sportsnet magazine actually gave him the name in an interview earlier this year. But whoever gets this guy past this stage of the draft, they're getting a steal.
Dale Talon.
Thank you, Florida Panther fans. Thank you for your support. To make the 11th selection in the 2015 NHL Draft, it is my honor to introduce the original Panther, Hall of Famer, 4-time Stanley Cup champion, Mr. Bill Torrey. The Florida Panthers select Lawson Crouse.
You know, the Florida Panthers just selected one of the hardest working players in the entire draft. After Team Canada, a squad that he was on, won gold at the World Championships, the World Junior Championships, that is. He went to the rink in Kingston the very next day. He wanted to get back skating. He said, I felt good. I felt great. I wanted to get back on the ice. His head coach, Paul McFarland, said, no way, take some time off. There was sort of a standoff between the two. Crouse wanted to get right back on the ice. But he insisted, Paul McFarland did, that Crouse stay away from the arena for 2 days. His sister, by the way, Kyla, goes to Queen's University in Kingston. And yes, they do go to each other's games to watch.
Should mention Travis. There'll also be a real sibling rivalry going on. Dad's Mike, Mom Chris. He's one of the most honest players in this draft. One scout said, if you want a safe pick, if the scout doesn't want to lose his job, you take Lawson Crouse.
This guy's an absolute guarantee. Period. End of story. He will play in the NHL, barring any major injury, and he'll play there for a long time. He'll be a future captain in the National Hockey League. And everyone's saying, oh, this guy can't score, he doesn't have the offense. I tend to think a little differently, and here's why. Paul McFarland made his reputation as a coach as being a defensive guy. Somewhat like in the same vein of Kevin Constantine and Everett in the Western Hockey League.
But he's also asking himself right now why he slipped.
Well, because people are worried about that. They're worried about his goal-scoring ability. But when you look at playing on a defensive team, you look at the guys around him. Sam Bennett was gone for almost the entire season. Spencer Watson, another goal scorer, was injured for a good chunk of the season. Yep. Defense first, plays in all the important situations. Did that as a 16-year-old, did it as a 17-year-old. Guy's a guarantee.
He had 22 goals until Sam Bennett came back, and then he had 7. in the last part of the season when Sam Bennett did return to Kingston. So there is offense there. It's a question of how much. Mike spoke about it. Either you have it or you don't. It's a hard skill to pick up. But now you look at the Florida Panthers and how they set up. Barkov, Huberdeau, Bjugstad, Ekblad on the back end, and now a big, heavy winger. Boy, future looks very, very good in Florida.
It certainly does. And I think the question you talk about, he's going to play in the NHL slam dunk quality. You know, he's ranked, he was given a 10 out of 10 in physical play and competitiveness by Central Scouting. So he's got all those intangibles, character, compete, all those things. But does he have that fine edge skill, be a top 6 guy, or is he going to be a very effective top 9 kind of forward? And that's really the question about where he goes in the future.
Lawson Crouse is standing by with George.
Here we have the man who's drafted Lawson Crouse and Lawson Crouse himself. Before we get to you, and I want to hear from you, you must feel like you got a bit of a steal here.
Well, we were hopeful. We're very hopeful. Everything worked out great. We needed some defensemen to move up, and we had him. We didn't think we were going to get Lawson, to tell you the truth.
Another horse? Is that what you said?
Another big horse for us. Yeah, he's going to fit in perfectly. We needed a big, strong power forward on the wing to go with Barkov or Bjugstad, who are 6'4", 6'6", so it's a perfect fit for us. We're excited.
No doubt it's not the first time you're going to hear this crowd have that reaction when your name is spoken over the loudspeaker. How did it feel?
It was pretty special. I mean, obviously I was very excited to be selected by the Panthers, and I couldn't be happier for myself and my family right now.
What were the meetings like and conversations? How much did you guys speak before?
Well, we've interviewed him twice. We brought him in again this morning to make sure that the character is impeccable in this young man, and that's what we're building here. And we have to be at our best at all times to sell the game in this market. So he's a big piece to our puzzle.
What the meetings feel like for you?
They were well. I felt very confident in my meetings, and I mean, they were nothing but great to me in my meetings. And obviously, I'm very happy to be a part of the Florida Panthers now.
Congratulations, both of you guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks, George.
Back to you guys.
George, appreciate it. They interviewed him again this morning.
You can do your due diligence right down to the wire. I mean, I think you're evaluating, especially once you get further down, you have to make sure that you are sure 6, 8, 10 different players, because you don't know what's going to happen ahead of you.
What do you think the upper level is for Lawson Crouse?
I think he's a 25 or 30 goal scorer, but the fact of the matter is he'll play on your penalty kill. At the very least, he'll play as your second unit power play guy with net front presence. He'll bring all the leadership to the table. I mean, I look at this guy, and he's a can't-miss guy for me. He is a little safer, of course, and you're not going to get the 50-goal guy. But what you're going to get is a guy who has great self-awareness. You look at when he went in and walked into Canada's World Junior Camp, and he looked around the room and he said, there is no one in this room that can do what I do. Skate fast, bang bodies, play on the penalty kill, and block shots. He went out and did that. He made the team as an underager. He'll do that in the National Hockey League. Maybe not as early as next year, but it won't be too far away.
And I can tell you this, I misspoke earlier when I said his buddy is Mitch Marner. His close buddy is, of course, Travis Konechny.
Yeah.
And he will now sit down and hope and wait for his buddy Travis Konechny to be drafted earlier than some are thinking he would. But it's hard, I think, Mike, when you're expected to go higher.
Sure.
But I think, you get over it, and he's going to a pretty exciting franchise.
I can tell you this, Dale Talon and Bill Torrey, they should take that gig on the road. that was entertaining. Dallas Stars are up next, selecting at the number 12 position. Jim Nill is the general manager, chatting with Gary Bettman, and now we'll make that selection.
The Dallas Stars would like to send a warm welcome to our fans watching the party at the Omni Hotel in Dallas. For our first introduction, I'd like to announce Joe Mactinell.
From Lada Tagliati, Dennis Urianov.
You know something.
This is the first surprise pick of the draft, and this is going to be a very interesting one. This is a spectacular, fast, speedy Russian forward that has just shot up late in the draft season, Sam. He was not really on a lot of teams' radar. I think he was sort of, middle top 10 among European prospects. Not even seen really as the best Russian-born forward available as Veni Svechnikov of Cape Breton was. And all of a sudden he jumps in and goes, wow, very high, number 12 to the Dallas Stars.
I think a comparable people could think about Chris Kreider. If you think about explosive skating, a guy who can just absolutely fly. but still a pretty good size. Chris Kreider for the New York Rangers does that.
And skinny. They think he's going to grow.
And he's going to fill out a little bit.
He's going to fill out, and he can flat out fly, Sammy.
Well, you look at this 1-2 act. You go to Jim Nill and Joe McDonnell. Those are the two guys largely responsible for several of the Detroit Red Wings drafts. So when Jim Nill went and got the job in Dallas, he brought Joe McDonnell with him. They love the way this guy interviewed. Yes, it was through a translator, but he brings so much to the table. And what else do they have in common? You go back a couple of years ago, Valeri Nichushkin was the guy they took. They feel he's a very complimentary player to Nichushkin, and it worked out well with him. They hope it's going to work out the same way with this guy.
The centerman he might get to play with. You get Tyler Seguin throwing the puck around. You get Jason Spezza throwing the puck around. If you're a guy who can skate with a nose for the net, you have some guys that can get you the puck.
So is there a risk?
I don't think so. I mean, I think the risk is he has to yet acclimatize to North America. He doesn't speak very good English yet. He can do all those kinds of things. But, it seems to be the size, the speed, all that sort of stuff there. I just think it was nice of the Dallas Stars to come up with a bit of a surprise for us before the Boston Bruins take over the rest of today's entry draft.
He's the 7th-ranked European skater.
Yeah, I know. It's a surprise, but people were talking about him. And, in fact, his agent, Mark Gandler, was saying, we were talking about Svechnikov one day of Cape Breton and what a special player is. And he started talking about Gurianov and saying, don't be surprised if he goes before Svechnikov.
Coming up next, the Boston Bruins take over the 2015 NHL Draft on Sportsnet with picks 3 in a row. National Hockey League draft continues here from Sunrise, Florida. Connor McDavid and Jack Eichel went 1 and 2. The most surprising part of the evening has been the trading and the action from the Boston Bruins, who will now pick 13, 14, and 15. 3 consecutive first-round picks for the first time since 1968 as we bring in Jeff Merrick.
Yeah, a hat trick of picks coming up here for the Boston Bruins. Hey, if you're at home and you're watching the draft right now and you're eating and tweeting, log on to my Twitter feed at Jeff Merrick. If you have any draft questions, any questions about the prospects, the players you're seeing here this evening, use the hashtag AskMerrick. To the draft floor we go. John Shannon.
You know, Jeffy, one of the big stories, obviously, is the fact that Boston does have these 3 picks in a row. A lot of managers walking by saying, what are they going to do? They need players. They don't need picks. And if they get the 2 players they want with 13 and 14, will they indeed consider moving 15? Elliot?
Well, John, the pick right behind them in 16 is Edmonton's, and there's been a lot of talk about Edmonton and its search for a goaltender, a search that, by the way, still continues. Earlier this morning, Peter Chiarelli said he would not use that selection to trade for a goaltender. So if they're going to solve it here at this draft, it's not going to be with that pick.
If you were not with us earlier, the Boston Bruins involved in a couple of high-profile trades in the minutes leading up to the National Hockey League draft. Milan Lucic was sent to the Los Angeles Kings, and Dougie Hamilton went to the Calgary Flames from a team that missed the points, finished the playoffs by just 2 points. Yes, Don Sweeney has cut his teeth as a National Hockey League general manager. This is earlier, chatting with Brad Treliving. Maybe that's when the trade was consummated.
And Don Sweeney's not dipping his toe in the water with it. No. He came out swinging. You have to have a lot of confidence and faith in what you're doing if you're going to send up Dougie Hamilton, a defenseman that young, and Milan Lucic, a cornerstone of the franchise as well, and get picks back, and exactly where they're headed for a perennial contender.
And I know Sam has a good feel on this one, but this may be where the run on the next group of defensemen starts.
Yeah, I think Zaboral is the guy that they're going to take care of. I mean, it doesn't matter because they have the next couple anyways. They're going to wear a path back and forth. They have 6 picks of the first 52. So Boston's really going to be able to make some headway and literally restart their franchise, if you will, from this point moving forward because of all those picks. They've moved some money. They've moved some big players. It'll be fascinating to see the reaction that the Boston fans have to this reboot.
I think a lot of people will be surprised if they use all 3 picks, though.
Well, it seemed when they were getting them, they were setting themselves up for future moves.
I'd like to say hi to our fans back in Boston at TD Garden at Legends and appreciate their support. With the 13th pick, Boston is proud to select Jacob Zaboral from the St. John Sea Dogs.
This pick guy, he is a mobile defenseman, plays a quote-unquote 200-foot game, and he's also sneaky tough. In a preseason game against Charlottetown, he's being picked on by a kid by the name of Bradley Kennedy, one of the toughest kids in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. He had enough, threw down the gloves, and KO'd him with one punch. He was asked afterwards why. He said, I've never been in a fight before. I wanted to see how I could do. Did pretty good.
Went on to be known as the strongest guy in the Quebec League.
Well, you know what? You look at the St. John Sea Dogs, and it starts with Zaboro. But they've hired the services of Paul Boudelier. He was working part-time with them last year. He's working with the Nashville Predators. He's now gone on to their staff as a full-time guy, and he's developed a defensive development system, which requires constant communication and requires some analytics. It requires self-evaluation, coach evaluation, and now they've really worked hard at putting this program in place, specifically with the St. John Sea Dogs. You'll see Thomas Chabot probably a little later in the first round, also a student of that defensive development program. I think this guy has got massive upside. I think he was a target for Boston right from the very start, and they even moved up that one extra pick to make sure that he would be there for him.
Well, and if you're the Boston Bruins, the nice thing is he is part of a very good organization in St. John that has 3 picks in the top 10 of the Q draft and is only going to get stronger. You mentioned Thomas Chabot, a guy, one of the other defensemen on that team. So it's nice when you draft a player that you can have some confidence talking about Boudelier working with them, knowing he's going to be able to go. Look what Edmonton felt they had to do. They felt they wanted Leon Draisaitl to move out of Prince Albert. I don't think Boston's going to have any concern with leaving him in St. John.
Did this reset from Boston come sooner than you thought?
Well, I mean, you thought, yeah, because they missed the playoff by just a couple points. They still had a very good team. The core seemed to be intact, and yet that is no longer the case. And so they are resetting, rebuilding, retooling, whatever you want to call it, and going to acquire a ton of youth as they get 3 picks in a row here.
Boston is up next, followed by Boston. Cam Neely, Don Sweeney going back to the table, grab another jersey, and head back on. 2015 NHL Draft continues on Sportsnet. Continuing coverage of the National Hockey League 2015 draft here in Sunrise. The Hardware has made the visit over from Las Vegas to the Sunrise area and the BB&T Center, home of the Florida Panthers. We are looking forward to a second consecutive pick of the Boston Bruins, and also checking in on the Harkins family. Jansen slated to go right around 23rd, which is in the area of that's Jake DeBrusk.
Yeah.
Supposed to be Jansen. Right around 23rd for Harkins, which is in the same neighborhood of the Vancouver Canucks. And wouldn't that be a fitting moment?
Well, I mean, right now I'm getting the sense of, and Sam and I are looking at each other, where are we going next? Where are we going next? We've got probably 20 guys who could go in the next 5 picks. It's that fluid. This is the part of the draft where it's going to become very, very interesting. Boston can go a bunch of different ways here. They can go more offense. Kyle Connor's there. Evgeny Svechnikov's there. Matt Barzal is still there. And with David Krejci battling injuries, Patrice Bergeron getting older, maybe that's a direction they could go in.
And that would also be a switch in philosophy for Boston. Always the big, tough, bad Bruins. Maybe smaller guy, quicker guy, offensively inclined. They want to go down that road.
Mom, Kirsten, dad, Todd, little brother, Nicholas, know their story very well. If you're with us in the pre-draft show.
I wonder if Boston leaves someone at the table to answer the phone.
Boston is proud to select with the 14th pick. I'm going to boo again. From Swift Current Broncos, Jake DeBrusk.
I think somebody knew something. The camera operator for that quick shot of the DeBrusk family. Here is Louis DeBrusk, who's wearing the microphone with us. Louis, you played in the National Hockey League. You scored goals. Louis, congratulations. What does that compare to?
Hey, you know what?
12 to 14.
Yeah. Awesome. You know what? Just a great feeling. Great feeling. Yeah, awesome. Guys, sorry. You know what? Overwhelming.
What did you say to him? What did you say to Jake?
I just said, you know what? Congrats, kid. Enjoy. You know what? He's earned it. And I'm so proud of him, and we're really excited for him. That's a great. You know, we're pumped. We're pumped. That's awesome.
Do you have trouble being a dad and an analyst?
Yeah, absolutely I did. I'm not going to lie to you. Yeah, for sure. You know what? Emotional, right? It's an emotional day, and we all go through it with them, and you only want the best for your child, and you know, we can't be happier that he's up there right now. That's awesome. Yeah.
What do you think the best advice that you've ever given him is?
You know what? I think just love the game. You know what? He loves the game. Just continue to love the game, and you take that in every day playing the game. You're gonna do okay, and he's done that his whole life. And you know what? I'm so proud of him. Yeah.
Was there ever a point where you had to have a tough conversation about the game with him?
Oh, thank you.
I'm Nat from the Bruins.
Thank you.
How many people do you guys have with you?
7.
Louis receiving congratulations, but this might be a little bit ahead.
You remember at a Wednesday night hockey show halfway through the year, and he finally jumped into Sportsnet's top 30. And you said, did Louis tell you had to put him there? No, he didn't. Jake DeBrusk got there on his own. 42 goals for the Swift Current Broncos this year. Here's the great thing about this. He's not at all like his dad in terms of how he's played. His dad was the tough man. Jake's a goal scorer who, when the year he was drafted into the WHL, he was 5'3" and weighed 110 pounds and went in the 7th round. Wow. And now he's the 14th pick of the National Hockey League draft to the Boston Bruins. What a rise for this young man. It's really been something.
It's been a wonderful story to watch, because you go to Swift Current and you think, oh, no one's ever going to come and watch me play there. It's a tough place to scout guys. But the one thing that's kind of cool about this pick is guys talking about 42 goals in the Western Hockey League and just how hard that is. Darren, you know all about that. It's nice to see some of the scouts going back to that old school mentality when you talk about goals, assists, and points being meaningful. And those 42 goals to the Boston Bruins were very meaningful in making the selection where they did.
39 assists and 81 points.
And where he scores from, too. He's got a nose for the net again. Not the biggest guy, not the thickest guy, not at all like his dad in Lou, but he gets right around the front of the net on the power play. Very good as well.
Well, he says, I like to think the play. Yeah. So again, his dad was a tough guy. And I said to him, you don't remember you watching your dad play? He said, no, I don't remember. But he said, I can't believe that was him when he watches his dad drop the mitts on YouTube.
You're obviously aware that Louis can hear us, because you keep calling him the tough guy. Yeah. Here's Jake with George.
All right, thank you very much, guys. What a great start to your career as a Boston Bruin. Tell them what just happened.
Yeah, well, just walking up here, you know, a Philadelphia Flyers fan kind of booed me, so
yeah.
So welcome to the NHL, I guess, but it's pretty funny.
He's like 4 years old.
Yeah, 4 years old and boo. Thought he was giving a handshake, but
as we get down into the draft and we're waiting for your name to be called, what's it like sitting in those seats?
You know, it's pretty cool. It's you know, you watch the drafts over the last couple of years, and you kind of a live look at some of the guys that you play with over the year and prospect scheme kind of thing. But it gets a little nerve-wracking, and Boston was one of the teams that I thought that I had good interviews with, and just kind of wait, and it was super exciting to hear my name.
What is it about the Boston Bruins that excites you to play for them?
I just felt that my interview went well, and I thought that they, you know, it just made sense, and just really good vibe. Just, you know, they're just really nice to me and, you know, smiling a lot. So I don't know why, but I just thought I would be a Bruin, and I think I was right.
You know, off the top of the show, we're talking to your father, we're checking the fennel, and now it's your turn in the NHL. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
First time in the modern era of the draft that a team's using 3 consecutive draft picks in the first round. 1968, Montreal Canadiens went through that. Louis is fast on the phone, isn't he?
You know what? I was a teammate of Louis many years ago, but to see the emotion, and you got a real glimpse of it there for every family, not just the DeBrusk, but every family, every dad, mom, brother, sister, for having their son achieve this step of their dream to get to the NHL. Awesome stuff to watch.
And young Jake has great admiration for his mother, Cindy, who works in the Edmonton school system, but also talks lovingly about growing up, learning to play hockey in the basement of the house with his big dad.
Zachary Senyshyn from the Sioux Greyhounds.
Don's right on this, eh? Wow. He's not slowing down.
Well, this is right off the board.
Yeah, this one goes off the board here. And Senyshyn is a fascinating character. He's got world-class speed. He played in a very deep Sault Ste. Marie lineup, so you really had to get a lot of looks at him to find out what kind of player he was. They love him up there in Sault Ste. Marie. He did a lot of things, even strength. When you look at the guys, especially that they acquired at the trade deadline in Sault Ste. Marie, that power play time, all the extra 5-on-5 time wasn't available to this guy, yet he was still able to put up good numbers. And part of getting those 3 picks in a row definitely was to target this guy. That's a guy that when you step up and take him there, knowing that they still have 3 second-round picks, that goes to show you just how much they like him as a player.
But that also show you have the potential maybe to slide back down and still get him later. I mean, you really got to want him because he's not rated until in the 30s, 40s in many of the
38th North American skater.
Yeah.
And
Which has you thinking he's going to be in the second, maybe in the third round, depending. But maybe having those 2 picks before it allows you to be a little gutsier with the third. That's one way to look at it. But he's, as you say, he comes out of that super program, and you look at the Boston Bruins, not only are they retooling, they seem to be going in a different direction. Skill, 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 a lot like we talked about with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Sheldon Keefe was the former coach, Sault Ste. Marie. They played a puck possession game. They want to score off the rush. They want to attack with their skating and their puck movement. Not about dumping it in and going to hit somebody. They want to have it. They want to keep it. They want to be creative with it. That's where the game's going. That's not always where the Bruins have been. But I think with everything we've seen Boston do today, they're kind of catching up with it, and they're embracing that in a big way.
The reboot, I mean, it started. It has started. 3 picks in a row. Really kind of different guys. You have DeBrusk, who has got that.
How many years until all 3 of them play in the National Hockey League?
Well, I think it's going to be varying times. Really, I do.
2, 3, 4 before all of them get there.
Yeah.
Breaking news, I don't need John Shannon or Elliot Friedman for this, but the Boston Bruins have ran out of sweaters. They're out. They're empty. There's your photo op. The top 3 picks. Coming up next, the Toronto Maple Leafs in the NHL Draft. 2015 NHL Draft from Sunrise, Florida continues on Sportsnet. Time for a Sport Check Draft recap, looking at picks 11 through 15. Lawson Crouse went to the Florida Panthers. A relieved Lawson Crouse, and then 3 consecutive picks from the Boston Bruins, unprecedented in modern draft history in the first round. Up now, the Edmonton Oilers, scheduled to select 16th. Bring in Elliot Friedman on the draft floor.
Darren, conversations about Edmonton trading out of this pick, and it looks like they're going to do it. Not exactly sure what the entire deal is, but it sounds like the Islanders are trying to move up into the 16th spot to come here. Don't forget, the Islanders did not have a first-round pick. They traded it to Buffalo in the Thomas Vanek deal from last year, but it looks like they're moving back in, waiting for confirmation, but it looks like the Islanders to 16, guys.
At this point, the Islanders not scheduled to pick until the third round, number 72.
They have 2 third-round picks. They got a 4th, a 6th, and a 7th. But one thing about the Islanders, they're really secretive about their process. They feel they're a step ahead of the game on everybody else. They moved up last year 7 spots to get Josh Ho-Sang in the first round. But anytime you ask anyone about the New York Islanders, Garth Snow is like a man shrouded in mystery. You can't get anything from any of their employees about what's going on there.
But you wouldn't think if they're stepping up to get this pick from Edmonton that a couple third-rounders is going to get it done. There's going to have to be more to it than that. There had been rumors out there that perhaps Kyle Okposo, for some reason, might be available. Kyle Okposo, a really good player on a really good contract, and fit in very nicely. Garth Snow has got some decisions to make.
Here's the commissioner.
Got it in there.
We have a trade. Edmonton trades picks number 16 and 33 in the 2015 NHL Draft to the New York Islanders in exchange for Griffin Reinhart. That means the Islanders now have pick number 16, and New York Islanders, you're on the clock.
Griffin Reinhart, 4th overall pick in 2012.
Well, I mean, you know, this is the team we talked about looking for defense. They got Darnell Nurse coming. Griffin Reinhart is in the NHL or played games last year, ready to go.
Well, here's the thing. They have great knowledge of him. They watched him right under the team that they own, the Edmonton Oil Kings. They won the MasterCard Memorial Cup with this guy. They have that great intelligence on him, and that is fascinating to me because when you look at firing Stu McGregor, their head coach, head scout, and a couple of other guys, who was on the list, what was happening there, who has that knowledge and that intel on Griffin Reinhart, it must be well known to someone in the organization because making a trade of this magnitude is huge for that one player who was selected 4th overall a couple years ago.
The Islanders got to have to like someone because it's not like they don't need defensemen in New York as well. I mean, then They have some holes there. I know they got Leddy, they got Boychuk, they have Hamonic, but beyond those guys, they need that kind of second pair, solid third pair kind of guy. Maybe a guy like Griffin Reinhart might fit in. So if you're giving him or trading him away, you better really like who you're going to get here on this pick.
It does blow me away, though. Again, you know, you hear all the time the hardest thing to get is young defensemen. You draft them high. Dougie Hamilton, 22 years old, moved. Griffin Reinhart, the 4th pick in his draft year.
21.
21. Very young defenseman moving now for other assets. But boy, teams are feeling aggressive with moving young players.
And on the flip side, what did Edmonton need the most outside of the Connor McDavid?
They needed a goalie, and they needed to completely revamp their defense.
Did not want to trade that 16th pick for a goalie.
But so obviously they feel that there is a market for a goaltender that will cost them less than this, and the priority and the premium was going to be for a defenseman.
Craig McTavish, Kevin Lowe, those would be the guys that Peter Chiarelli would have leaned on for this trade, because those guys watched Griffin Reinhart all through his seasons with the Edmonton Oil Kings. And the thing, when watching Griffin Reinhart, you really have to watch him a lot to appreciate his game. Many people feel he has that vanilla game where he's a good skater, he's not overly physical, he can give you a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Many people think he has that vanilla game, but when you watch him over the course of the long haul, you have a much better appreciation for what he brings to the table.
And to me, this is how winning the draft lottery really was such a game changer for Edmonton, because they could now look at their other assets and move those to get players and do different things.
It was also looking ahead, because that was Craig McTavish that traded and acquired that 16th pick.
And there's a lot of skill out there. Kyle Connor, Matt Barzal of the Seattle Thunderbirds is a player, a center out there right now with a lot of skill in the Western Hockey League.
That's still kicking around right now, Matt Barzal.
You think, do they need another center? But did Philadelphia need another defenseman? Maybe they go with the best player available, and that might be Barzal. And as I said, Kyle Connor also out there.
Well, second line center might be a bit of a hole there in New York. They have Tavares, of course. They have Franz Nielsen, very good, but a real solid Grabowski's there right now, but maybe a guy could slide in there in a couple of years. Nielsen will be older. Get that offensive push in support of John Tavares.
Right. Aggressive managing, because Garth Snow has been certainly at the forefront of trade deadlines in the past.
Absolutely.
And it cost him this year at the National Hockey League draft, and he found a way to make up for it. Extremely big price, but the New York Islanders now in a position with a mid-first round pick when they weren't going to pick until mid-third round. Here is Garth Snow.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Florida Panthers, Vinny Viola, Miss Statori, and Dale Talon for the hospitality. I'm going to introduce Trent Klatt to make our selection.
The New York Islanders are proud to select from the Seattle Thunderbirds, Matthew Barzal.
Matthew Barzal met with 25 teams at the Combine, and he had one of the most up and down seasons. Not necessarily skill-wise, but just battling a fluky injury.
Well, he almost wrecked his draft season by goofing around before a game, and he cracked his kneecap, missed 28 games, really knocked himself down. But I'll tell you, very effervescent guy with a lot of personality. Talked to his agent, J.P. Barry. He says, I think this kid knows more about the draft than depth charts of other teams. So he probably had it already figured he was going to become a New York Islander. He probably figured they're going to want me behind John Tavares in a couple of years.
Well, he's really engaged in the game. I mean, he's a video nut. He goes back, he watches his shifts, he watches friends of his in this Canadian Hockey League, he watches NHL games. You see he's well versed on the draft and other things. A very engaged, intelligent young man. But coming back from that injury, showing people that he had something to prove, and then going to play for Canada at the under-18s really brought him back up to the level that everyone thought he was going to be at. When you started to prognosticate this draft going back to last year, this guy for sure was a top 10 pick, probably inside the top 7. He slips all the way to 15. The Islanders make a big push, and give the Islanders a lot of credit here for really stepping out in front of things. They surprised a lot of people by going up to get Josh Hosang last year, and I think they surprised a lot of people with this deal here.
You know, he's also one of the most personable kids in the entire CHL with a great sense of humor. He's been known to take reporters for interviews into the Seattle Thunderbirds gym and gets on the bike and says, guys, let's do this interview old school Ottawa style.
He doesn't lack confidence. It's not cocky. It's just he really loves the game.
He does. He's got a tremendous head for it, great vision. For sure a pass-first guy. And as a winger, you probably like playing with a centerman like that, but you also want a centerman who's a threat to score as well. And just 12 goals this year. I know it was an injury-plagued season, but he doesn't have that kind of shot first, go get the goal myself. Tremendous disher, tremendous passer.
Great vision.
But does not have that shot score mentality.
They make a trade to get the 16th pick. Let's go back down to the draft floor and John Shannon.
You know, Sam talked about people that were involved in this trade from the Oiler perspective and who would know Griffin Reinhart very well. Give Bob Green, who was directly involved in a great deal, give Bob Green, who was involved in the Oil Kings for that Memorial Cup trail, a lot of credit for this trade. He was the guy that Peter Chiarelli looked to and said, can Griffin Reinhart be part of this club long term? And that's what the new regime in Edmonton is trying to do. Use some of the old and the new to create a new franchise victory in Edmonton, boys.
Well, you go back to Bob Green, was instrumental in building a really good Medicine Hat Tigers team. Then he goes over to the Edmonton Oil Kings, puts a 5-year plan in place. They win the MasterCard Memorial Cup. He goes to Edmonton as a scout, basically for overagers and college guys. He was promoted this year, and that was huge. His intelligence having being the general manager for the Edmonton Oil Kings when Griffin Reinhart was there.
That brings us to pick 17, the first of 2 first-round selections for the Winnipeg Jets, a team that took a big step a year ago, made the Stanley Cup playoffs, but a team that also has just an incredible boatload of prospects.
Well, they've got Nick Ehlers coming, and
he's going to play next year.
They did lose Evander Kane, and you wonder now at this part of the draft, there's Kyle Connor still sitting there, maybe a little lower. Svechnikov from Cape Breton. If they want to add a little bit more up front, you know, to give them a little bit of something to deal with some of the better teams in the Western Hockey League, that's one possibility. Cheveldayoff on the phone, maybe he's entertaining. They have the 2 picks.
He tried to move up.
Yeah.
That didn't happen.
Yeah. A lot of expectations in Winnipeg, you know, that they're going to be there next year because it was so exciting, everything that happened last year. A little bit of a thud the way it ended at the hands of the Anaheim Ducks. They could probably use a little bit more skill, I think, up front.
The one thing Winnipeg does is play fast. And Paul Maurice gets them. That's their organizational mentality is to go with speed. So you look for a burner, one of those forwards. Merkley around, Kyle Connor's around.
Yeah, fastest skater in the draft, right?
Pretty good skater there if you want just straight blazing speed.
I mean, you look at the speed, what he brings to the table, a guy who has slipped considerably in my mind is Kyle Connor. They're sitting there looking at him saying, yes, we have to take the best player available. Chase Delio, they got Josh Morrissey, Jan Koslik, they've got goaltending prospects starting with Eric Comrie. Their cupboards are stacked right now, so they're in the perfect position to take the best player available, and I believe it's going to be Kyle Connor.
Winnipeg Jets with 2 picks, 17 and 25. Lost in the opening round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and this franchise has returned to the playoffs since relocating to Winnipeg. Top 6 winger, always there. Depth. They aren't hurting for anything in particular, but Cheveldayoff is one of the most patient general managers in the National Hockey League.
And it's paid off for that team. And of course, then when he was ready, he was able to swing the big trade, and it really bumped them into the postseason last year.
And it's really helped their depth. Tyler Myers getting that young defenseman in there. He's going to be very good for a really long time. Dustin Byfuglien's coming up after 1 year via UFA. Andrew Ladd. So they have the potential, some pretty big guys leaving as they always trying to restock those cupboards.
Craig Heisinger, assistant general manager, also part of the Winnipeg Jets management team.
The other question for Winnipeg, of course, what happens if Burmistrov comes back? And are they banking on that or looking to move that player?
And the contractual demands. Michael Frolik wants something that starts with a 5. Stafford, I think, as well.
To Kevin Cheveldayoff.
The Winnipeg Jets would like to congratulate the Chicago Blackhawks for winning the Stanley Cup championship. We'd also like to thank the wonderful fans in South Florida here for a fantastic week. We'd like to say hello to our Jets fans at our draft party back in Winnipeg at the Met. The Winnipeg Jets are proud to select from the USHL Youngstown, Kyle Connor.
He is a player that moved up 4 spots in your rankings midterm.
Yeah, and I think if you're looking for a comparison, Michael Grabner is a possibly Mason Raymond, that kind of raw speed. Plays, you know, he can play left wing and center. Detroit kid, he's committed to the University of Michigan next year, the first player picked this year from the United States Hockey League. Interesting, you know, when he wanted to go to that Ann Arbor program, the National Team Development Program, they wouldn't take him. And you talk to Don Granado and he'll tell you, yeah, we might have missed on Kyle Connor because he's turned out to be a pretty good hockey player.
It's funny, I talked to a couple of scouts, and the one thing they said about this guy, that even if he was picked in that 10 or 11 spot, which that's the spot I expect him to go in, that they're going to get a much better player than they anticipate there. So when you go down the list and you get to Winnipeg here at 17, I mean, they've got to be extremely excited about it.
They're going to get a much better player.
Well, I think because they see so much upside. They look at that frame. He's a skinny guy. He's already 6'1". They think he still has height to gain. They think, obviously, he has weight, strength, muscle. But he's already a really fast player, and you talk about it, Mike. It's
the building blocks. He can skate, and he can think.
And he can score.
And that's really what teams are after. A lot of the size, the physicality, defensive acumen, that comes with maturity, both physical and mental, time on the ice, coaching. But the things that are hard to coach, skating, IQ, he's got both.
He's came out of that really outstanding Detroit Bell Tire program, played with Zach Werenski. We saw him go earlier to the Columbus, Columbus Blue Jackets. His dad played junior C hockey, was born in Alaska, so he's got some hockey background in that family, and it's really paid off for him.
Well, I like his second half. I mean, you look at Youngstown, was expected to be a really good team in the USHL, and they weren't just muddling along. On February 6th, they reeled off 23 wins in 25 games, largely in part to what this guy did. Scored 8 game-winning goals throughout the course of that time, brought Youngstown back up to the top of the table in the USHL, and almost did it single-handedly.
I know that you can't read too much into these things because he did have college on his mind from the Shelby Township area in Michigan. But his CHL draft, he was 274th. And now he's top 20 in an NHL scenario.
You know, you go to that national development program, those kids are very often, almost exclusively, head to colleges to start. So if you're committed, he's going to Michigan. He's been in the Ann Arbor area for a long time. You know, there's no real impetus to pick him much earlier if you know for sure he's going, and he's still thin. He's still trying to develop.
But it's part of the jousting that's going on. And we talk about all the time between the NCAA and the CHL, and now the USHL is involved in it as well. And Zach Werenski, we talked about that he might end up going to London, or they would certainly like him to. Last year, Sonny Milano left school to go and play in the CHL with Columbus. There's pressures on these kids. And it really depends what the organization they join, what they value, and where they want to see them develop. I think he's ready to go to another level, but is it college? Probably.
Yeah. Well, especially with what Winnipeg has already.
Bad thing.
With all the prospects they already have, let them mature in college. Let them play. Go back to George.
All right, guys, thank you very much. So where'd you think you were going when you walked into the arena today?
I had no idea. Yeah, it's you never know in something like this.
What's that moment like? You hear your name.
It's unbelievable. You know, you can't even put it into words. You know, it just goes back to all the hard work and you know, support I had throughout my whole career.
You know, the Winnipeg Jets surprised a lot of people this year the way they played. They got in the playoffs. They had that incredible run. Were you able to watch some of what they were doing?
Yeah, I was. You know, I'm really excited to be part of their organization and look forward to helping them in the future.
Congratulations. Good to see you, man.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. Gentlemen, connect me.
Canada really takes over this draft in this stretch of 11 picks, where 8 of them are Canadian. Ottawa is up next with Brian Murray, who got into the things with trading Robin Lehner earlier for a first-round pick that will come up in a couple of selections from now. But the needs for Ottawa, they didn't have a first-round pick last year, so the 2 this year are going to pay off.
Well, I mean, they had some real nice scoring ringers emerge. And Hoffman, of course, Stone had his incredible season. Turris keeps taking strides, MacArthur, but they didn't get a lot from the bottom end of their lineup. And if they could find some sort of depth, offensive players, guys that can help support those guys, that'd be a really nice pick for them.
Well, and on the back end, Chris Phillips is aging.
Yeah.
Jared Cowan hasn't quite turned out to be the other guy. So I think that one of the defensemen sitting there, well, there's a couple still, but Thomas Chabot, his teammate, Jacob Saboro went earlier. Chabot is a smooth puck-handling defenseman, might really help that Ottawa team. And Travis Konechny, captain of the Ottawa Guys, 67 sitting there. I think their need, to me, is more on defense. But
Yeah,
I hear what
you're right. I mean, the puck movers are always in demand, and they can never have enough of those.
But if you're looking at a guy like Shabbat, maybe he's available with that second first-round pick that they acquired, and maybe that's a guy that they targeted. I mean, let's not forget that the Ottawa Senators have had great success in Sweden as well, and we haven't seen any Swedish players come off the board, and maybe that's an area they go with one of these two picks.
Well, you've got the defenseman Larson, you've got Carlson sitting there, you've got Eriksson Ek sitting there, so there's a number of Swedish possibilities for him as well. Jeremy Roy, another puck-moving defenseman along with Thomas Shabbat. He could interest Ottawa.
Didn't have a first-rounder last year. Lazar the year before that, as we head to the podium. They took Cody Ceci, 12th in 2012. At the
Before
15
the
mark.
Ottawa Senators make their first round selection, we would like to say hello to all our fans watching at our official draft party at Sens House in Ottawa. The Ottawa Senators are proud to select, les Sénateurs d'Ottawa sont fiers de choisir from the St. John Sea Dogs, Thomas Chabot.
You know, beginning of the season, guys, Thomas Chabot went into St. John Sea Dogs management office and said, I want to be a first-rounder in the NHL this year. And they said, do what Jakob Zboril does. And it became a competition. He followed and tried to pattern himself on the ice and off the ice of what Jakob Zboril did, to the point where if Zboril added extra workouts, he added extra workouts. Zboril started taking boxing classes, and Thomas Chabot followed suit.
And they're both in the ring as National Hockey League first-rounders. Interesting story. His dad was his coach for a lot of years. His dad was also a teacher. And one year his dad was his teacher, his dad, and his coach.
That's right.
Yeah.
Couldn't get away from him.
But obviously, he's a kid that realized what was on the line and took those steps.
Well, and I've talked about Ivan Provorov starting the year as a B prospect for Central Scouting, ends up going high with Timo Meier, same thing. Again, Thomas Chabot. And I think it really shows, kids, and Mike, you've been through the process, where they rank you at the beginning of the year, or how they feel about you, you can change minds. And Thomas Chabot is a player who changed minds this year and really rose up the ranking.
And it speaks to what kind of kid he is, because when you're disappointed with that early ranking, it can really affect you negatively. You can wallow in self-pity and feel bad for yourself, or you could take like a challenge, be motivated by your teammates, do the extra work on your game, and then here you are, find yourself.
What kind of player is he?
What he is the Travis Sanheim of this year's draft. Travis Sanheim started last year on nobody's radar whatsoever. Philadelphia Flyers stepped up and took him 17th. The Ottawa Senators doing that with Chabot. He's a wonderful skater. That's his key asset. Size and skating ability. And when it comes to Thomas Chabot, the work ethic is the thing that they really like. You know, you heard Jeff talk about working out with Zboril all the time, taking boxing lessons. He's a fascinating type of player that some people have compared to Nathan Beaulieu back when he played with the St. John Sea Dogs. A tall guy, a really good skater, a puck-moving guy. He doesn't have quite the stick or puck skills that Nathan Beaulieu possessed, but he is developing in that ilk, if you will.
It's been a very busy day for Brian Murray, who is with George.
All right, thank you very much, guys.
Okay.
Here we are with Brian Murray sitting down. When did Thomas get on your radar?
Well, Pierre talked about him as early as, early December. Obviously, a real slant there to get some local kids in our organization, and his skill level, I think, just went up as the year went on.
Did his play change your minds? Did the change in his play change your mind?
Yeah, he was one of the most improved players that we talked about over the course of time. And obviously, there's some real good kids in this draft, but he was one of the priorities because of his offensive ability.
Great skater, reliable with the puck. Were you addressing a need in your organization?
Just he gets back quick to get the puck. We have to work on the shot a little bit, George, but beyond that, it looks like he's a real complete player.
Congratulations. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, in meeting some of these players, you try and get a beat on who they follow, who they pattern themselves after, and Thomas was a guy that said he liked Al McInnes growing up. and we all looked at each other and went, hey, you're not old enough to remember Al McInnes. But he loves that heavy shot, and it's funny to hear Brian say that's one of the areas that he's got to improve on. but the work ethic. He and his older brother were in the basement nonstop. They wrecked everything. It's totaled. But I guess if the end game is ending up in the National Hockey League, Francois and Claude Breton, parents there, he's a player that is so efficient.
Right. Yeah.
That sometimes there's a knock on him because it makes it look so easy. Here's George with him.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Bonsoir and congratulations. Thomas, what's it like to hear your name and you're going to be in Ottawa?
It's sure you always want to hear it as soon as you can, but to finally hear it, it's the best feeling I ever had.
What do you think it is about your game that they found appealing?
Probably my offensive game, my skating abilities when I have the puck. And I'm getting better year after year. I'm always been the player who's get better, so it's probably what they like about me.
There you go, drafted by the Ottawa Senators, Thomas Chabot. Thank you for your time. Back to you, gentlemen.
With Detroit up next. Anything catching your eye right now?
Well, here's the only thing. And we've talked about the goaltender, the Russian goaltender, Ilya Samsonov. He's under contract for another 3 years. Didn't show up to the combine, changed agents, now has Igor Larionov. Bit of a man of mystery at this. I think Detroit and maybe Minnesota, the next pick, are two teams who might be willing to jump in and take Samsonov at this point. Now, it's a bit of a risk, and look, we've seen goaltenders almost fall out of becoming first-round picks at all.
Yep.
But I wonder if he might end up in this area.
Don't do it. Don't do it. I just
Why?
don't think it's worth taking a goaltender, especially a guy that you probably won't see play on your team for 6 or 7 years. The general manager who makes that pick probably won't be around to see him come to fruition. I
don't think Kenny Holland's going to be around in 6 or 7 years?
Kenny Holland's been
He's been around for 100. It's got to come to an end sometime.
The Detroit Red Wings would like to thank South Florida and the Florida Panthers for your wonderful hospitality. Tyler Wright, our Director of Amateur Scouting, will make our selection.
From Cape Breton, Yevgeny Shnevechnikov.
He was 21st in January in Damien Cox's rankings, jumped all the way up to 16 in the final total. And tonight he is a Detroit Red Wing.
Well, and if he turns out for the Detroit Red Wings, they'll be able to thank the Tampa Bay Lightning. Why? Because he suffered a seriously injured ankle while over in Russia. He played in the KHL briefly and then came over to North America. And he trained with Tampa's strength and conditioning coach Mark Lambert in Montreal, along with Alex Killorn and Nikita Kucherov. And that really brought him to another level of conditioning. And since then, it also helped him learn English. And he is an outgoing young man who really is now ready to play in North America after spending the year in Cape Breton. He's a winger who can score. More skill for Detroit.
6'3", 204 pounds.
I didn't think they were going with the goalie, guys. But you look at Svechnikov, this is probably in the area where everyone thought he'd be selected, maybe a little bit earlier than this. But when you look at his overall game, he doesn't mind playing physically whatsoever. He's not going to initiate, but it's so he can take hits. And
he was suspended for a hit to the head during the year, so he does get engaged a little bit. He has a little bit, which is not a bad thing. You don't like to get suspended, but the fact that you're playing there and you're over here in North America and you play with that kind of edge where you get a suspension, that's not the worst thing in the world.
And we talk about journeys to the National Hockey League. This young man comes from the Sakhalin Island area in Russia, way out east near Japan. So it's been a long road for Evgeny Svechnikov. First to get to Cape Breton, now he's on his way to Detroit.
What do you like most about his game, and what do you think he has to improve?
I think there's a lot of different dynamics to his game. I mean, the skating ability is there. He shoots the puck well. He shoots the puck well off the rush. He can go down and bang and crash down low. So all of those offensive elements, they're tough to find in a package of one player. And then you add the size to that. The other thing I like is the stuff that you talked about, Damien, his will to succeed, staying in Montreal over the summer times to continue to work out, to get better, learning the English language. I mean, there are a lot of things to like about this guy, and I know they absolutely loved him in his interviews with almost all the NHL teams that he spoke with.
Detroit Red Wings have made their selection. Look down the floor. Dean Lombardi and Brad Treliving. They've been involved in big deals already tonight. Maybe more as we continue from Florida. Continuing coverage of the 2015 NHL Draft on Sportsnet, presented by Sport Check. From Sunrise, Florida. Entering the 20th pick. And Jansen Harkins family continue to wait. Todd, Dad, Mom Kirsten, and his brother Nicholas. Lombardi's making his way around the rink now with Peter Chiarelli. So he talked to Calgary, then he moves over to Edmonton. He's playing them off each other.
He's really making
pretty
his
animated
point
right now. Making sure he's got Peter Chiarelli's attention.
Interesting thing about the next pick here, the Minnesota Wild, they actually almost had a first-round pick already today because they signed Mike Riley, the defenseman drafted by the Columbus Blue Jackets. So they now have added to their core without yet picking. So having, I'm not going to go down the sand. We won't do the goalie thing again.
Don't do the goalie thing.
I'm not doing the goalie. Well, who knows? But the other
They
kids,
need a goalie.
The other, well, poor Chuck Fletcher has gone through so many goaltender.
Yeah.
He's got to sign Devin Dubnyk, we know, but
they're making some progress there.
They're meeting every day here in Florida.
He was one of the GMs who I said, would it bother you to draft a Russian goalie who was under contract for 3 years? And he said no. You know, so he's looking long. The other players sitting there that we've talked about a lot, Nick Merkley of the Kelowna Rockets.
Travis Konechny
and Travis Konechny,
yeah.
Lost in the second round, swept by Chicago. Marvelous rally for the Minnesota Wild this year, behind the play of Devin Dubnyk, making it into the Stanley Cup playoffs. But there's been so much inconsistency in goal. Here's Chuck Fletcher.
Minnesota selects from Färjestad, Joel Eriksson.
From Färjestad, Sweden. He was 22nd in the midterm rankings for Euros. Jumps all the way up to 4. He is a player that on both rankings, both yours, he wasn't even ranked in yours midterm, Damien.
Well, I missed him by one in the mock draft. Do I get any credit by that?
17th.
I had him to Detroit there.
One of the biggest improvements.
Well, he really jumped up. He was sort of, to me, I think, like Guryanov, the Russian, who really came late in the year and really impressed a lot of people with what he brought to it. Big center, 6'2", 180. You know, another guy, big center down the middle. A Swedish player that they can leave over there in a really good Färjestad program, let him develop.
If you went and scouted him earlier in the year, he wouldn't have been on anybody's radar. But the reason why he was taken here, he wasn't. Because he had a steady improvement from the start of the year until the end of the year. He starts off in the junior league, and he's not doing much there. Then February turns on the calendar, and all of a sudden, he starts to assert himself. He gains more confidence. He gets into a program where he can have an impact on the game, and he ends up making an impact in the Swedish Hockey League, coming from their junior program. That steady improvement from day one to the end of the year is what got him selected here.
I played in Färjestad during the 04 lockout. I was part of that organization. We lost in the finals to Henrik Lundqvist's team in Frölunda, but I got a sense of how professionally that organization is run. The development they have, they've had a string of players come over, both forwards and defense, and kids of this age don't put up great stats in Sweden. They just never do, but you practice more, you practice longer, and Swedish kids can really improve their games by playing and practicing against the men at the elite league level, and Joel Eriksson certainly did that.
Pick 21 is up next. The Ottawa Senators return to the podium with Brian Murray and company as we continue from BB&T Center in Sunrise, Florida, the 2015 NHL Draft on Sportsnet. Bottom third of the 2015 NHL first round draft here on Sportsnet with Brian Murray and the Ottawa Senators ready to go back up to the podium. They selected 18th. Now they're back for the 21st pick. This is a team that has some local talent in its backyard right now. A little bit surprised maybe Travis Konechny didn't go that 18th pick. This looks like a pretty good opportunity.
It looked for me that it was going to be around 15. And in fact, if LA had not made that trade with Boston, I thought they were going to jump up and take him maybe with the 13th pick. So when all of that changed and Boston making trades, now Ottawa has got the opportunity here to make that second selection here in the first round. I mean, again, it's that intelligence. It's the guy in your backyard. You know him better than anyone. But it'll say a lot if they bypass Konechny with this pick.
Didn't we just heard Brian Murray say we're looking for some more local content? Konechny's right there.
Well, it was interesting, you know, and Garrett Joyce wrote about this in Sportsnet magazine. The testing they do at the Combine is different than the testing they do at the prospects game, as you well know. And Travis Konechny on the skill quotient testing at the prospects game was exceptional. and people remember that. And then you wonder that his skill level may be higher than it's perceived to be because he had a bit of an up and down year, missed time with a concussion, some things like that. Plus, he was moved from center to right wing under Jeff Brown this year in Ottawa, and that changed his game, and but he had a strong second half.
Boy, oh boy, I mean, but he's slipping already. I mean, how far is Travis Konechny?
You go with your heart, local guy, or a guy you know really well, or do you go with your head, maybe somebody else?
Pick 21.
Before making our next selection, the Ottawa Senators would like to wish a speedy recovery to our owner, Eugene Melnick. Also, we would like to recognize Nick Bolano, who is retiring from the game of hockey. Nick had an excellent career as a player, head coach of the Detroit Red Wings, and as a pro scout. We wish you the best and enjoy your retirement with your family. The Ottawa Senators are proud to select les Sénateurs d'Ottawa sont fiers de choisir from USA Hockey's National Team Development Program, Colin White.
I can confirm that the White family and friends are sitting very close to us with that eruption of joy. So if you bypass Konechny, it says something about Colin White. What is that?
Well, Colin White is a guy that you really had to watch a lot to get a read on him. Why? Because he battled through mono, then he had wrist injuries, and then he comes back and really makes his mark in the final month and a half. They really liked him as an underager last year. He put up points, he was playing, he was healthy, and then this year when you run into the injury problems, you better make sure you do your due diligence on a player like this. And I think I had him going 20th, and so to find Colin White walking up to the podium at this stage of the game is I think a lot of people had him right in the spot.
He's going to Boston College. His rights are owned by the Quebec Remparts. As you say, he slipped because he had such an up and down year. If you ever watched Bo Jackson play football, you might have met Colin White's dad, because his dad played at Georgia Tech, and one of the famous Bo Jackson highlights, he's running over Colin White's dad. So he comes from a sports family, and his mother played tennis at Florida State as well. So there's a lot of pedigree in this family. Like I say, he's going to Boston College. He's compared to Patrice Bergeron, David Bolin, that kind of a player. Really nice pick here for the Ottawa Senators.
And he's going to a pretty good place at Boston College. Jerry York there churns out a lot of good professional hockey players, so he'll have time to continue to develop and grow. And big moments, under 18, he scored the overtime winner to win it for USA. So you always like guys who have been in big moments, and you always like guys who have had success in those moments, because it's something they can draw on throughout their careers as maybe a tiebreaker between them and other kids.
Well, that's funny. Don Granato talked about it. This is the guy that he wanted the ice in those big situations. A big-time player. You talk about producing in those big moments, and Colin White was the guy who was able to do that. And again, I think there's a good value here in this pick for Ottawa because of the injury-plagued season he had.
So at the recent under-18s, it was him and Austin Matthews playing for the U.S. there. And when they went to 4-on-4 in the final game, the overtime, they were just alternating between the two of them. That's how much Don Granato thinks of Colin White.
Since 2011, the Ottawa Senators have picked Mika Zibanejad, Cody Ceci, Curtis Lazar, and now Colin White in the first round. You see him as
that's a good run.
That is a good
run. I mean, you get middle-tier first-round picks as far as like the numbers, and they turn to the NHL in the next 2-3 years. You're doing a very good job, and Ottawa scouting department deserves a lot of credit, and they're not just the scouts, but the player development to turn those guys from a pick into an NHL player.
Right. Curious, when he's slotted right around 22, 23, whether he had Ottawa on his radar. He's with George.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, standing by here with Colin White. You know, you had said earlier that this was a year where you had to regain respect from a lot of people. You feel like you've done that now?
Yeah, definitely. You know, it was a tough year coming in. You know, I felt pretty good coming in. And then, you know, I ended up getting mono, sick, wrist injury. But, you know, the end of the season was great, and, you know, I'm happy how it ended.
When you get to play, as you hope, for the Ottawa Senators in the National Hockey League, what are fans going to see in your game that'll surprise them?
Yeah, you know, two-way game. You know, a guy who likes to do the things to help their team win. You know, just help the guys in the locker room, really.
Leadership, that's important?
Yep, definitely.
Where's your strength in that world?
It's every day it's building, you know, you can learn so much from it, and, you know, it's definitely great to have.
That's cool. Congrats, man. Welcome to the Ottawa Senators.
Thank you.
There you go. Colin White, everybody. Back to you guys.
Awesome.
Yeah, his family and friends also travel well. Washington Capitals now up with the 22nd pick. This is an organization that has incredible skill, organization that's witnessed goaltending development from Braden Holtby, and on the blue line made that decision to go through free agency with their blue line. They seem to be as well-rounded as we've seen a Washington Capital team in a number of years.
But there are some holes now. Some unrestricted free agents. Joe Ward's going to be leaving. Maybe Eric Farrer might be leaving. They're looking for some high-end wingers maybe to play in that first line with Backstrom and Ovechkin. Probably not going to find that guy here, but certainly open to trading for some of the high-end guys that might be out there at the NHL level right now. But they can go anywhere with this pick. They can really take it anywhere they want.
You look at Washington under Brian McClellan, moving from George McPhee, Ross Mahoney, who you see sitting on his left. There's really been a seamless transition. McClellan's been around a long time. So too is Ross Mahoney, who's pretty much running the draft here for the Washington Capitals. And every time you see a general manager change, you wonder if the philosophies are going to change. You wonder if people are going to be moved in and out. And you've seen that before. But with McClellan, he's so confident in his abilities, in his job, in the organization, because he's been around for so long that nothing has changed for Washington. They've done a really good job in the draft. You can't argue with it.
Can I make one more pitch for my goalie, or are you still saying no?
I never say
goalie. The only thing I would say about Washington,
goalies in first rounds anymore?
The only thing I would say about Washington is they're not afraid of Russians. And
Very
with
true.
Kuznetsov, they had the patience to wait for him to play over there. So maybe they're not okay.
I guess the oldie factor is part of it.
If they're going to go that way, Braden Holtby is the prime of his career here. They have the luxury. If they wanted to get a goalie, they don't need one
for 6 or 7 years.
3, 4, 5, 6 years.
And look, I will tell you this, that Samsonov did show up. After not showing up at the Combine, he did show up in Florida. He is a massive guy, and people love him as a goaltender. But he's under contract for the next 3 years in Magnitogorsk. Who knows when you'll see him?
Well, maybe that's why he changed agencies. Now with Igor Larionov, which happened in the last couple of weeks here. So maybe that changes the dynamic of things as well, if it is indeed Samsonov.
Also curious about the transfer agreement and what happens between the National Hockey League and
there's a Russian
KHL.
factor with all players playing in the KHL, from the transfer agreement to the contracts that they have, which scares many teams away from taking guys that high because they want the sure thing, which is a North American player.
Washington selects Ilya Samsonov from Russia.
Damien?
Wow.
Do you want to sit back and enjoy this moment?
No, because I had him, a couple of picks earlier, but I really felt, and I know John Shannon and I went back and forth, and he really felt he wasn't going in the first round. And the more I heard, I just thought, people think this kid is so special that he had to go in the first round. And, that this is the team, the Washington Capitals, which I think we'd all agree, they feel very comfortable with Russian players, more so than some teams.
And he'd have to be. Last time a goalie was picked in the first round, I think it's 2012, both Vasilevsky, the guy who he is very frequently compared with, and Malcolm Subban. So it doesn't happen very often, and you better be pretty good.
Damien's point about Samsonov is pretty valid. The one thing you have to be concerned about is, and Sam talked about it, is when do you get him and how do you get him? Yes, he's got 3 years to develop in the KHL, but at the same time, will he be here in 3 years? And by the way, Braden Holtby will still be at his prime in 3 years, one would think. So that's a factor. This is an interesting one, other than the fact that goaltenders now seem to be getting to the point where you can't carry 2 goalies of big salaries. So you have to always keep churning out another goaltender, as you have to worry about signing your goaltender to his next deal.
Just to pick up on that, if he plays the next 3 years, he's not even only playing in the KHL, but you don't have a lot of influence on him.
Right.
In that regard.
Which I think matters. I think Mike would agree, matters a little less with goaltenders than other position players. The other thing, that he's not just playing in the KHL, he's playing in Magnitogorsk. It's his hometown. And his dad is a big fan of the local Magnitogorsk. There's going to be a lot of pull for him to stay there and play for that team, but he's a talented young guy.
Dad's ordering season tickets. Just a couple of weeks removed from the Stanley Cup final, Joel Quenneville and John Cooper squared off there. They're great friends. Decided not to talk during the final. Catching up right now here in Sunrise. It is the 2015 NHL Draft on Sportsnet, presented by Sport Check. It is pick 23, the Vancouver Canucks, slotted right in that area. Jansen Harkins of the Prince George Cougars. His family continues to sit and wait. Nicholas doesn't look. I don't think Nicholas has moved. Todd's chewing that gum like a champ. And we're wondering right now whether Vancouver at 23 with a BC boy takes that leap. Jeff Merrick?
Yeah, you know, it's a wonderful hockey family out west of Harkins. And also, Father Todd was a actor, sort of. He played a Soviet hockey player in the movie Miracle, Darren.
They would take that right now. They would call going in the first round that exact moment. This is a guy that's been on the edge, inside the top 30, and then drop down a little bit. And it wouldn't be a shock to see him slip to the second round, but it wouldn't be a surprise either to see him go.
No, I mean, again, you just need one team to like you, and you know, and I think, you know, Jansen Harkins is a player. I think the question would be, at this point in the draft, is it high to take him because he's not? Will he have that offense at the next level? And for me, I still also wonder, as we talked earlier, Vancouver need on defense. You know, is there some need on the back end for them with Bieksa and some of their other things? But
maybe you go back to Sweden here. A couple of defensemen, Larson, Carlson, both of those guys are available. Shillington's available. I mean, Jim Benning's been awfully quiet this year compared to the splash he made last year. He's turned it over to Don Sweeney. Yeah.
Anybody surprised that Bieksa wasn't moved by this point?
Well, I think it's going to happen.
You don't have to do it if you're not trading for obviously a first-round pick tonight. Then you can do it tonight, tomorrow morning, or even into the future.
And he mentioned the Swedish defenseman. You also still got Nick Merkley of the Kelowna Rockets, local kid. Travis Konechny, you know, he's there as well. So a lot of opportunity, a lot of choices here for Vancouver.
Jim Benning.
Vancouver select from Waterloo of the USHL, Brock Besser.
This is an emotional story. Player that, when he was overseas playing in the under-18s, got the call that one of his best friends been in a car accident, died. His dad's battling Parkinson's. Gave his mom a hug this past winter and just said it's so hard. And she gave him the pep talk and said sometimes life isn't as smooth as you'd like to, but you got to fight through it. And he credits his mom for that moment of giving him the strength to get back in the skates and focus on what he's supposed to, and that was playing hockey.
Sometimes you forget that these are kids, and you go through teenage experience, and thankfully I've never had that happen to me where you lose someone at that young age. But if you go back to your youth, can you imagine losing one of your buddies? I mean, and there's really not a whole lot that you can do to impact it because you're off playing hockey and you're kind of focused on that sort of thing. That says a lot to me about this guy's character, that he's able to battle through that, keep his friends in mind, obviously with his father going through what he's going through. I mean, it's a wonderful story of character. And I'll go back to the words compete and character that have been the buzzwords for National Hockey League teams throughout the draft. Vancouver got one of those players here.
35 goals in 57 games. 3 USHL players at the beginning of the year really seen as first-round picks. We saw one of them go, Kyle Connor. Tommy Novak, who plays with Besser at Waterloo, hasn't been picked yet. And this kid, up and down winger, a guy who can score goals. This was his first full USHL season coming out of high school. Interestingly enough, you know, he's a right-handed shot. He's from Minnesota. He was going to go to the University of Wisconsin, changed his mind, and is now going to University of North Dakota. And since he committed to go to North Dakota, they've changed coaches.
Yeah.
So maybe he'll change again.
What's the upside, though?
I think he's going to be a power forward, a goal scorer, because when you watch him play, he's got a great release. Around the net, he can get it off quickly. He can score goals. He's got a nose for the net, pretty big size. So I think you're hoping that he develops into a top 6 winger that can score goals.
You look at the highlights there and you see what looks to be a taller, lanky guy. He's about 6'1", but I think that's the area that some people had some issues with. It's the skating, and you often see that, and then oftentimes it improves enough for him to be able to play at the next level.
Here from Brock and Jim Benning with George.
All right, thanks, Darren. Yes, Jim Benning and Brock Besser are here as well. What did you see in this guy?
Well, he's a scorer. He's a guy that he's strong on the puck, and he's got a real good release on his shot. So we expect him going forward to be a scorer for us.
Did you know, when you go through your meetings with some of these teams, what were those meetings like for you? What was it like meeting with the Canucks?
It was great. Just going through that whole experience, it was just kind of eye-opening what it's like. So I'm really excited.
You know, a lot of talk has been about how it hasn't been the easiest road for you in the last handful of years, man, and here you are. What does a day feel like today, knowing everything that you and your family have gone through?
Yeah, I'm definitely trying to take everything in. It's definitely emotional for me, but I'm really excited.
It's a moment when your name was called and we were watching you up there with your family, and there was a stillness in your face when that happened. What were you thinking then?
Just thinking about my whole family, just everyone there that was supporting me throughout all these years. So I'm definitely really excited.
Very good. Now you deserve that Vancouver Canucks jersey. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Back to you guys.
George, now at the 24th pick, Toronto Maple Leafs. And Kyle Dubas is on the phone. Does that mean working a trade? Saw Kevin Cheveldayoff earlier, and he was just catching up with people.
Well, and we talked about Mark Hunter. This was his pick, or the 4 pick was his. Kyle Dubas, despite his youth and very early in the National Hockey League, he has been the point guy for trades for the Toronto Maple Leafs all this week. Shanahan gave him that responsibility to see if they've got something cooking.
What's happening, Elliot?
Well, Damien, they do have something cooking. The Brain Trust from Toronto and Philadelphia are meeting here at Central Registry, including Brandon Pridham, and he's the guy who handles a lot of the contracts for Toronto. Barry Hanrahan, who does it for Philadelphia. So it looks like Philadelphia is acquiring Toronto's 24th overall pick here. We'll wait to see all the terms. Guys?
Ron Hextall, Elliot, thank you very much. Made no secret about how important he feels this draft is for his organization.
And that's his MO, is he's a draft and develop kind of guy. He realizes that's how you have to fill your roster out. He learned it in LA with all their successful draft picks, trying to bring the same to Philadelphia.
We have a trade. Toronto trades picks number 24 to Philadelphia for picks number 29 and 61. 24 for 29 and 61, Toronto to Philadelphia. That means Philadelphia has the 24th selection in the 2015 NHL draft. Philadelphia, you're on the clock.
Maple Leafs slide down.
Acquiring assets, Philly sees the guy they like that they're going to take here, but Toronto slowly drops 5 and then gives you another chance to maybe find a hidden gem down at 61.
Well, and you're in now the range of the draft where moving down to 29, 61, you know, because the draft is so deep, you may have an opportunity. They needed more picks. That's what they've been talking about. More picks, more picks.
The name of the player that Philadelphia really wanted. Next, as we continue the 2015 NHL first round on Sportsnet. No lack of drama. I know that we went into this night knowing Connor McDavid and Jack Eichel would be picked 1 and 2, but after that, it's been plenty entertaining, especially when it comes to the trades, all the first-round selections that have been moved around. Back on Sportsnet, the 2015 NHL opening round of the draft continues. Darren Millard along with Mike Johnson, Damian Cox, and Sam Cosentino from Friday Night Hockey. The Philadelphia Flyers have moved up to grab the 24th pick. The Toronto Maple Leafs sliding down to 29. What would they have their focus on?
Well, I mean, they've obviously targeted a player. They're moving up to get into the 5 spots to get up there. And Hextall talked about the draft. And when you target a guy and it costs you a second-round pick to move up, you think very highly of that player. And so Hextall said, we can't make any mistakes with this draft. You know, he comes from that LA background where they did a lot of drafting and developing.
Got to be so forward, though, after they took Provorov earlier.
Yeah, you would think so. I mean, Travis Konechny's got to be the guy. I mean, I can't see Konechny getting out of the first round here. And it's tough when you look at a young kid's face like that, thinking that he probably was going to go 10 spots earlier. You can see the disappointment in his eyes, but that can change in a hurry.
Kind of fits the Flyers mold too, doesn't he?
He does. Energy guy, straight line guy,
bulldog,
skates really fast. Not the biggest guy. He's had some head injuries, some concussion problems because he plays that style, which is why you love him. But you're also worried about when he gets playing against bigger, stronger, heavier guys, will injuries be an issue?
Philadelphia selects from Ottawa, the Ontario Hockey League, Travis Konechny.
One scout said he's the best player for junior hockey in the OHL for his age, outside of Connor McDavid. It's just the concern about his size. Are you surprised at all that the concern about his size in today's NHL, the way the game is going, seems to be a factor.
I don't think it's concerned about him getting pushed around. It's that can he survive playing that way, being built the way he is. And to our point, he plays very physical, and you love it. He gets it along the boards, he battles, it takes it hard to the net. With a couple concussions already under his belt, is that going to be an issue? I think that's the greater concern about the size.
I mean, we contrast that with Mitch Marner, who went much earlier in the draft to the Toronto Maple Leafs. He doesn't look for contact in the same way. He's looking to slip and slide and roll off guys. Not this kid. He's going to take it straight to you, and that's what he does very well.
Well, you have all the intangibles there. That's the first thing. But when you look at Konechny, he's not effective unless he plays physically. So, Mike, to your point, saying that playing against men, the head issues that he's had to deal with so far, is when that translates to the National Hockey League level, he's still going to have to play in that vein. And if he doesn't, he's not going to be nearly as effective. He knows that. We talked to him a lot about it throughout the course of this year, playing in the Canadian Hockey League, playing with Ottawa in the Ontario Hockey League. So I looked at him at the Combine, though, and he looked ripped. He must be working out like crazy since the end of the season, and he knows that that's the issue against him. He's going to play with a burr under his saddle, and he's going to be out to prove people wrong.
Intangibles. He's a great leader. He's a captain at 17.
Yep, there's captain of the Ottawa 67.
Talked to Jeff Brown, his coach in Ottawa, down here in Florida, and he could not say enough good things about Travis Konechny. And he was, now of course he's somewhat biased, he is his coach, but he was pushing for him top 10, well, he's that kind of talent, that kind of kid, and whoever got him would not be disappointed.
And that really says something, because they had a push and pull, Jeff Brown and Travis Konechny, because Jeff Brown really decided he thought he was a winger, and Konechny had always been a center. And for these kids, it's hard to get them. So there was a lot of push and pull, particularly early in the year when things didn't go well.
You go back to the start of the year, you're right, and everyone wondered what happened to this guy. Where has he gone? There's no points, there's no jam to his game. Well, he got it sorted out in the second half, and I think that BMO Top Prospects game was a real lightning rod to boost him back into that first round when many thought previous to that he had fallen out of it.
Now we go to the Winnipeg Jets for their second selection scheduled for this opening round. Number 25, this is the Patrick Kane, or the Vander Kane selection.
Well, and there's the interesting pick that we have not talked about all day, so we might as well talk about it right now, or an interesting player, and that is Daniel Sprong of the Charlottetown Islanders. Some would say he has top 5 skill, but he's a story, isn't he, Sam, of many different kinds. And it's going to take someone's needs to jump up. And I'm not necessarily sure he's going to go here. He may not even go in the first round. But he is a very exciting possibility, but some teams are a bit nervous.
He seems to me that he'd be a perfect fit for a team that has multiple picks in the first round, because you're trying to hit a home run with this guy. You're hoping that he can get over some of those things that many people say maybe he's a selfish player. He doesn't use his teammates well enough. He was been given that message from the start of the year, and nothing really seemed to improve in that regard. But when it comes to Daniel Sprong, you're right. This guy's got top 5 skill. It's a matter of figuring out the rest of the game and realizing that if you do use your teammates, your skill will actually be taken to another level if you can find a way to do that.
And for people who don't know about him, Daniel Sprong, born in Amsterdam, came over to Canada at age 7, hoping to become a Canadian citizen at some point, has not yet. And, you know, he scores and he scores and he scores. Now, we're talking about him. There's a number of other kids out there, and maybe, you know, he makes some teams nervous.
Anthony Beauvillier might be one of those guys. He's slotted towards the end of the first round. You're watching Beauvillier sitting there, and he too is a guy who thought he was going to go in the first round. So maybe he's a guy who slots late. Nick Merkley is still there.
Some of those Swedish defenders that are still available. Toby Enstrom's been really good for Winnipeg. Could they try to find another player like him? Puck mover, good skater.
Sprong is a guy that he's been called an individual player in a team sport, and that's you got to break through that. But he's also one of those players where there's so much out there about him.
It's almost
this where the interview
for somebody.
Process really comes into play.
If he figures it out, someone's going to hit a home run here late, either in the first round or at some point on Saturday.
It is that time of the first round, though, where those guys on the bubble.
Now they're nervous.
No, you know what?
And you feel for them.
As a parent, it starts to break my heart.
You're absolutely right.
Winnipeg at 25.
Winnipeg selects from the USA Hockey's National Team Development Program, Jack Roslovic.
surprised?
No, I had him actually going to Montreal with the next pick. I mean, you look at Don Granato, and he had a lot of trouble trying to find the guys to play with Tkachuk and Austin Matthews, and they cycled everyone up and down the lineup to try and find that guy. When Roslovic went there, he actually made Austin Matthews better, and that's where scouts are looking and saying, well, he wasn't just a passenger on that line. He was equally as good as the other two guys on that line, started to produce. The entire line became better, and here's the end result.
And there's something to be said for a guy who understands how to play with talented players. And you get Tkachuk, you get Austin Matthews. It's not easy to play with. Oh, look at that. That is awesome. to play with players that are that good and to be able to know that you can think and read and react and interact speaks volumes about your hockey sense, and I think that's paramount for us.
You don't think these families carry a load?
No, it's pretty exciting. And there had been talk about whether he could jump into they're an emotional group today, whether he could jump into the first round. I'll tell you, it's turning into a heck of a draft for USA Hockey. They are really, the people are showing, whether it's out of that program or it's the USHL, NCAA, people are really getting excited to what's happening with some of the players coming out of the United States.
Well, you look at that under-18 team, I mean, just perpetual gold medals in the World Championships. And yes, Canada doesn't always send over its best players because they're still playing in the Canadian Hockey League, but it still says something. When year in, year out, you can go to that tournament and be absolutely dominant. Roslovic, a big part of that. That
program in Ann Arbor, that national development team has completely changed the way that the youth of America and how they develop through their teenage years and into the NHL, off to college or CHL, wherever they go. They develop them so well, train them on, off the ice, and they do a great job.
Well, and not just that, they're starting to find, this kid's from Columbus. They're starting to find kids in a lot of different places, including, talked about Austin Matthews, who's from Scottsdale, Arizona. They're finding kids in Texas, Los Angeles, Colorado, Arizona, St. Louis is turning out players because they've had terrific program, and all of a sudden they are finding places and players they did not find players before.
Learn more about this pick, the general manager and player, with George.
All right, thank you very much, guys. Yes, here we are. You grew up a Columbus Blue Jackets fan. You're watching Rick Nash play. You're sitting in there watching those games, and now you are an NHL draft pick. How does that feel, Jack?
Yeah, it obviously feels amazing. Sign of relief. I'm just so happy to be here, and it's obviously a big deal. Coming here, and it's the National Hockey League, so it's definitely a step up. So,
how much did you talk to the Jets before it?
We met them at the Combine. They came to the rink in Ann Arbor, and I had a follow-up meeting with them 2 days ago or yesterday. So a little bit.
How'd you feel about this?
We're really excited. We really like Jack's hockey IQ, and his skills are tremendous. So we're excited to add him to the group of young players that we have within our organization, and we're really looking forward to development. We've had a great history with the U.S. development program, and we're looking forward to another step.
The present is so exciting for the Winnipeg Jets, and now the future is as well. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Guys.
Thank you. George, appreciate it. Montreal is next at 26, but just to tie things up on Winnipeg, 2 picks in the first round. Provorov started them off. What do you think of their performance?
Oh, sorry, of the Winnipeg Jets.
Winnipeg Jets.
Well, the Winnipeg Jets, you mean Shabbat, they ended up not right. You know what? They're addressing things, and again, are we getting into the part of the draft now where you're stocking your depth chart? You're not necessarily getting guys who you think might be with you in a year or two, but guys who might go to the minors, they might be with you in 4 or 5 years, so you're storing away talent.
All about projecting where they're going to be in 2, 3, 4 years, and they'll be very much different players and people than they are now. Will that player in person be able to play in the NHL? That's what you're trying to find here, and you look for the bases, the things that are hard to coach, the IQ, the hockey sense, some of the skating ability, and then build off of that.
I wonder if that pick impacts what Montreal will do, because I really think they had targeted Roslovic.
Yeah, Shabbat, the smooth skating defenseman, and now Roslovic, who can score. Now Marc Bergevin. They finished with that second round loss to Tampa Bay. This is a team that, there's no secret, needs a center.
Sorry, a little bit of Connor. We've had some confusion going back because you threw me off and say it was Kyle Connor, and then taking him.
So what would you like to see Montreal do?
Well, that's a good question. You know, you look at their team, and they had such a funny year because it was so much about Carey Price, as we saw the other night.
Yes.
Gathering all those awards. The analytics were ugly for them. They weren't a good possession team. So, you know, do they need to add that kind of player who's going to allow them to be a better possession team? They talk about size all the time about Montreal, except Marc Bergevin doesn't seem worried about that. He moved size last year.
No, I mean, I think a puck-moving defenseman it would be a great idea. Some of those Swedish guys that are still available would be really nice. Or they could take a wild card because they need goal scorers. They need pure goal scorers to insert in their lineup at some point in the next few years. And Sprong is that, although he's got some holes in his game. But the one thing he can do is score. And Marc Bergevin has never been afraid to go off the board, think on his own, take a risk. Maybe he'll do that with the pick here.
They're in an interesting place, the Montreal Canadiens, because like some of the other Canadian teams, expectations are so high after the season they had.
First, I'd like to congratulate the Chicago Blackhawks on their Stanley Cup win. Second, I'd like personally say thanks to Dale Talon. If I was from Dale, I wasn't standing here today. Thank you, Dale. J'aimerais saluer tous les partisans des Canadiens de Montréal. And for our pick, Trevor Timmins going to make the pick.
Bonsoir. The Canadiens de Montréal, the Montreal Canadiens are proud to select from the Everett Silver Tips, Noah Juleson.
Montreal Canadiens go back to the Western Hockey League.
Well, Noel Juleson is a guy who possesses a shot that Kevin Constantine says has staying power, and for whatever reason he seemed to be on the ice as a defenseman for the most goals of any of Everett's defensemen whenever they were scoring. And you know, Everett's always challenged to score. They play that defensive-minded game. But Juleson is a guy who really started to sneak up on everybody. I think was made aware of to a lot of people at the BMO Top Prospects game, and then comes back, has a really good second half. He's got a little bit of bite to his game. He's overcome some personal adversity, and a guy who's a really steady player who can go back, retrieve pucks, make that good first pass out of his own, and he skates a little bit as well.
Well, and this is a young man who, he's a little like Jake DeBrusk. He was small, and grew competitive. And players who say they like him ahead of some of the other top players in the Western Hockey League, they'll say they like the competitiveness. Has never really played on good teams. He's played on mediocre or weak teams and had to battle through and battle through and battle through. And I think that's part of what shined through. We talked before about character, competitiveness, all that kind of stuff. I think that's part of what people see in this young man as a prospect.
You hear all the skill set, and it kind of falls in the same category of Provorov, except not as dynamic. Not as dynamic.
Not as dynamic. No, not that kind of a guy. Not at quite the skater as he is. I mean, we were talking about the last couple. This is a young man who's going to play another year junior. He's going to play in their minor pro system. They will bring him along. You know, they need to have some success with some young defensemen, which they started having with Nathan Boileau, who you mentioned earlier on. But this is a young guy who will fit into their program.
He really, as a 16-year-old, when you're playing top 4 minutes in the Western Hockey League as a defenseman last year, I mean, that's pretty heady stuff. He really benefited from that. Played in 59 games there in his first year and really learned the lay of the land. He comes back this year, you know, with some nagging injuries at the start of the year, and then he starts to figure it out. And that's when he really took off, probably around that December-January mark. And for Juleson, a proud day, a guy who was expected to go probably between here and 35. Montreal jumps up and gets him there, and I really think once Roslovic was taken, he became their guy.
And I think like a lot of young defensemen, or NHL or otherwise, the simpler that he is willing to play, the more effective he is. Because he plays such a big role, so occasionally can try to do a little much, which you love the attitude that results in that, but just making those simple plays, if he does that, makes him a more effective player.
Sees the game real well. He could rush the puck. Now, where does he top out? What's his ceiling?
Well, I mean, I think if you're talking about what his top side, it'll be where his offense develops, and that's where so often we see these young players. We say that's what they are. It's up to the organization to now develop those other parts. And Mike, you talk about either you have it or you don't, but for some of these guys, particularly defensemen, you can develop their skills.
Let's go down to George.
We didn't get him.
All right, hey guys, we're sitting with Mark Bergevin, the man who made the selection for here. Tell me about that. You had a cluster of guys you wanted. You're happy with the selection?
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously he plays out west. We saw him a lot because of our pick last year, Sherbak and Everett. So puck-moving defenseman, young kid, puts up some numbers in Everett. Good coaching with Kevin Constantine. So, like I said, we like defensemen, and he's a good one. And again, good young gentleman, good family. So really proud.
Big shot, and he can play a lot of minutes. Is that important for you?
Yes, and he's yes. That's again, he's got 2 more years in junior at least, and it's again, you're always happy with your pick, but there's a guy that we like, and we're glad that we're able to get him.
When you took a look at where the Habs prospects were walking into this, if you in the next couple of days, you like where you're going?
Yes, I do. I mean, last year we picked, last couple of years our first pick were forwards. So this year we felt ready on defense, and we're glad that he was there.
Good to see you, Mark. Thank you very much.
Thank
Mark Bergevin. Gentlemen?
Mentioned Sherbak. Is this a player that they become familiar with, Juleson, because they scouted Sherbak so much?
How many times do you see that happen? Whether it's a player that you're going to select in a draft down the road, or whether it's a player that you're signing as a free agent, maybe as an overager, it happens all the time. You go in there to help develop Sherbak because he's a guy that I think has superstar potential. So you have to work with him. You go in there, and this guy keeps catching your eye. All of a sudden, you get a crossover guy. Then you get the GM to go and have a look at him, and everyone comes to that consensus with Noel Juleson.
Making his way over towards George. You know nobody's happier right now than George Stroumboulopoulos, who gets to talk Montreal Canadiens on multiple occasions.
Did George hug him?
Yeah. But
welcome.
The last 3 picks for Montreal in the first round have been 25, 26, and 26 back into the draft. George?
All right, thanks, guys. All right, there you go. The blue, black, and rouge. You're wearing the jersey. What's that like?
For sure. It means a whole lot. I mean, I've been waiting to do this my whole life and dreaming about this, and finally the dreams come true.
It's incredible. You're a member of the Montreal Canadiens organization. More work for them to be done, certainly, over this time. We go back to the podium now for the next selection in the NHL draft. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Anaheim Ducks up at 27. Bob Murray, Bruce Boudreau making their way towards the podium.
For such a good team, the Anaheim Ducks actually have a pretty good depth chart. Yeah. Nick Ritchie there, very excited about. They felt they got him last year. Shea Theodore, Josh Manson. They have some players still coming. I know Bob Murray talking about their group.
He's young player Emerson Edom just playing. Ricard Raquel still getting very good. So they got some young pieces trying to bottom fill that lineup.
Anaheim is proud to select from Frölunda, Sweden, Jakob Larsson.
They've had success with Swedish players.
You look at the 3 Swedish defensemen that everyone was talking about going in the first round. It starts with Shillington, who last year would have been a top 5 pick for everyone, obviously struggled through this season, but he's a wonderful skater and offensive guy. And then you look at Gabriel Carlson. He's the big guy, the stay-at-home defensive guy. And then you go to Larsson. Larsson is a cross between both those players. He's going to give you some offense. He's going to be able to defend. They really like the upside he has and think that he has more to offer offensively. And Mike, you made the point a little earlier that sometimes it just takes a little longer for the Swedish players. They have great practice habits, great ability to develop staying at home in Sweden. That's likely his course of action, and we'll see what happens from there on out.
No need to rush him over here. As you got to remember, that's an 18-year-old playing in a men's league. It's going to take a while for them to get minutes, to get roles and responsibility, but the fact that he's even able to play in the elite league at his age speaks to how good he is.
Well, look at the success they've had with Hampus Lindholm. You know, and how at 21 years of age. So they're going to go back to that. Bob Murray was a defenseman himself. As I said, they've got Josh Manson, Dave's son, really coming along, and Shea Theodore, who can really, really skate. So now you add this young man to that group. He just says defenseman. And this is an organization now that just hired Dallas Eakins as their new head coach of their minor league program. So they want to start, continue to develop. He wanted to make a change there, even though that was a pretty successful program. So he's always looking to develop.
And the one thing he probably has to do, like a lot of kids, he got a little stronger, got to add some weight, some muscle, and maybe be willing to play a wee bit more physical. And if he does that, then that'll be part of his development over in Sweden the next couple of years.
Well, all those guys, you kind of take care of business in your own end and then allow the offensive side to come. I mean, that seems to be his trajectory.
A strength gets even stronger for the Anaheim Ducks in a young defenseman. This is a team that is trying to make the next step.
Selection in the
28th selection
NHL draft belongs to the Tampa Bay Lightning.
There was some conversation between the Lightning just moments ago and the New York Islanders. There's Garth Snow.
Wait, I think we heard that. Didn't we see that last year with the Tampa Bay Lightning?
We have a trade. Tampa trades this pick, number 28, to the New York Islanders for picks number 33 and 72 in this year's draft. New York Islanders have the 28th pick in the 2015 NHL draft. Islanders, you're on the clock.
Islanders, who entered tonight without a first round pick,
Now have two.
are now about to make their second of the night. Garth Snow waiting on the 28th selection, the 2015 National Hockey League Draft on Sportsnet. This is the 2015 NHL first round draft on Sportsnet, presented by Sport Check. Your better starts here. Final couple of picks of the night. The 28th selection has changed hands from the Tampa Bay Lightning to the New York Islanders and general manager Garth Snow. Scenario where the New York Islanders have been very aggressive tonight, taking Matthew Barzal with the 15th overall selection. Now acquire the 28th pick for the 33rd and the 72nd. The 2nd through 7 rounds will be held tomorrow here in Sunrise.
We've seen this movie before. This is exactly what happened last year. The Lightning was 35 to 28. Now they get that extra added bonus. So the Tampa Bay Lightning, Al Murray, Steve Yzerman, they get one extra crack at things here. And we just talked about how deep this draft is. I think it goes into the 3rd round, and that's why you're seeing talks like this continue.
Kyle Dubas, Jarmo Kekalainen.
Because you have Kekalainen there with Columbus. You got Kyle Dubas there with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And don't forget, Columbus has 3 second-round picks, and you know that the Maple Leafs will be looking to acquire more picks.
You have a hunch here, Damien?
Not really. I mean, we've seen a lot of forwards drop. We talked about Sprong, Merkley. Sam mentioned Anthony Beauvillier earlier on. There's a lot of guys who were once seen as higher in the first round who were there, but who knows?
New York Islanders.
Dougie Waite.
Dougie Waite.
Thank you. Just like to say a quick hello to our fans in Brooklyn and Long Island. I'd like Mario Saraceno to make our pick.
Les Islanders de New York sont fiers de repêcher. The Islanders are proud to select from Shawinigan, Anthony Beauvillier.
Left winger, 5'10", 173 pounds, 94 points this year.
Well, it's odd. You look at his brother, Francis Beauvillier, was selected by Florida in the 6th round in the 2012 draft. Had all the skill in the world, but what he lacked is something that his brother has. That's heart, that's passion, that's determination. That's what Anthony Beauvillier brings to the table. In personal viewings, going back to the Subway Super Series, watching the Shawinigan Cataracts, he seemed to have difficulty playing in big games or where the moment was big. But you go to the under-18s, he started off a little lower on their depth chart, and by the end of it, Tim Hunter started using him in important situations. He's a good face-off guy. He's really effective coming off the wall. That's where he makes his money. He's got a lightning quick release, he's got a sneaky hard shot, and he makes his money working down below the dots, curling back, and firing it from that position right there. So Beauvillier is a guy who's playing on a really good Shawinigan team. They're going to be excellent next year. He's going to have all the chances in the world to be a leader for that group as he started to be this year.
And he becomes the 3rd forward who really wasn't seen as a first-round pick, at least by Central Scouting, joining Zach Senyshyn and Jack Roslovic as a player who was seen enough. As we said before, you just need one team to like you, and that's the team or to be a first-round pick. Interestingly enough, Shawinigan has Dennis Jan, who was actually rated higher than Anthony Beauvillier. He's still on the board, and this young man goes in the first round to these guys.
You saw some of those clips, though, that release.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't care what league you're playing in, you get 40-plus goals. Yeah. You can shoot it, and he can certainly do that. And I don't know if that was happiness on his face or relief that you know, he's picked, he's a first rounder, and his career's underway.
The other thing about the New York Islanders, they've become a team that's become very good at using Bridgeport and their minor pro system to develop players. They didn't do that very well at all, and they've really become outstanding at bringing guys along, and he'll get time.
Well, one thing they did this year, the New York Islanders, Garth Snow, they hired Power Scout, and that's a full-on analytics system, and they went throughout the course of the year, and they ran all the numbers, and they really went head first into it, and I think you're starting to see that move into the amateur side.
Back to the podium.
We have a trade. Toronto trades the next selection, number 29, to the Columbus Blue Jackets for picks number 34 and 68. 29 for 34 and 68. That means the Columbus Blue Jackets have the 29th selection in the 2015 NHL Draft. Columbus, you're on the clock.
So if you're keeping track, Toronto has now turned the 24th pick into 29 and 61, and the 29 pick into 34 and 68. So that's 34, 61, and 68.
If you remember when Mike Babcock was hired, he said, what we've got to do is get Mark Hunter more picks. And that's what they've done here. They're trying to multiply their picks rather than just use the ones they have.
Toronto gives up the pick to Columbus. 2 more remain in the 2015 National Hockey League Draft on Sportsnet. 2 picks remain in the 2015 NHL first round here in Sunrise, Florida. The Harkins family continues to wait. You see the excitement of the players is bordering on relief instead of the excitement from the opening couple of picks. But boy, what the agony, the gut-wrenching moments that we've been able to show you tonight.
I hope that there's people out there that say, hey, listen, this is a deep draft. Yeah. It's no shame to go past the first round here. And if you go into the second round, you're still going to get all the opportunities in the world to play. But you need your parents, your agents, your family out there telling you, hey, don't be ashamed if you happen to fall to the second in this draft.
Hey, we're sitting beside a guy who wasn't drafted at all, got passed over, and he played a lot in the National Hockey League. So you have to go down and give these kids a hug, Mike, and tell them this doesn't mean it just because you slipped.
It feels like the worst thing right now, and you understand why.
Sure.
But they also realize very quickly whether you're picked 28th, 32nd, 43rd, once you go to camp, it's just about whether you can play. If you're a top 5 pick, yeah, you might get a bit of benefit of the doubt. Other than that, it's what you do on the ice.
Blue Jackets are proud to select from Sweden, Linköping, Gabriel Karlsson.
Gabriel Karlsson. We may have another trade too.
Well, why wouldn't you? Just to finish this off, I mean, Gabriel Karlsson, a big defenseman out of Sweden. And I would imagine the Columbus Blue Jackets came into this draft saying, we've got to add defensemen, particularly after losing Mike Riley, a UFA to Minnesota. They've accomplished that with Gabriel Karlsson, who was ranked a little higher than this, and Zach Werenski, of course, earlier in the first round. They've done, I think, what they came here to do.
Well, Karlsson made his mark as a defensive defenseman, a stay-at-home guy who defends well, takes care of the front of the net, makes that good first pass. But a couple of scouts that I talked to say he's got some very sneaky upside on the offensive side of his game. And if the Columbus Blue Jackets can bring that out of him, they will have hit a home run here with that 29th pick.
It's interesting, you know, the Swedish defenseman, we talked about Oliver Shillington, #1 European prospect. We thought he was going to be here. Now two Swedish defensemen have gone, and we've yet to see him go. So while we're focusing on Jansen Harkins, and that's heartbreaking to watch that family, and with a number of kids who haven't gone yet, Shillington's another guy who was seen as better than some of his countrymen, and now he's fallen a bit behind.
having gone through this before, the change in the format of the National Hockey League draft, I think adds to the emotional pull because you have this first round tonight, and then you have to go and sleep on it before you come back tomorrow for rounds 2 through 7.
Seems very much like a tiered system. Yeah. Either you're the Friday night guy, or you're part of the big Saturday crew. Everybody wants to be part of the Friday night lights. Watch him play though. Rangy. Is he? I mean, big. Long limbs.
Arizona holds the last pick of the first round for right now.
The 30th and final selection in the first round of the 2015 NHL draft belongs to the Arizona Coyotes.
Don Maloney and company.
The pick that they picked up for the Antoine Vermette deal. Chicago. And
well, we've talked a lot about their forward group. That's really deep now. You've added Strome to the mix. You've addressed that size up the middle thing. I mean, maybe this is an opportunity where you have multiple picks in the first round where you can go and swing for the fences here. I mean, Phoenix still has plenty of picks left in this draft. We talk about the depth of it going into the third round. Shillington, Sprong are two guys that have questionable character according to the scouts. Maybe they try and hit the home run with one of those two guys.
There has been a trade, but it is for the next round. This is between the Devils and the Ducks. Kyle Palmieri goes to the Devils for the 41st overall pick and a third-round pick next year. That's between the Devils and the Ducks. They're not even waiting for tomorrow to make the deals.
But I think what you're seeing here is an expression of how deep this draft is in terms of teams are really valuing those second and even third-round picks as places they believe they're going to find players.
Kyle Palmieri was a pretty good player and an effective NHLer, had a decent playoff. To see him get moved out of there is interesting. Matt Bolesky looks like he's going to leave Anaheim as well, so there will be some openings. And for a team that has done consistently as well as Anaheim has done, they've had an awful lot of turmoil, whether it's coaching on ease, adding new players, goaltending situations, and yet they're always one of the best teams in the Western Conference. But now Bolesky will be gone, Palmieri likely gone, but some of those prospects are acquired today.
But John Shannon is in. He's still here. John?
Indeed. Was talking to Bob Murray earlier. He was trying for most of the second half to move up because all he said to me all night long was, hey, the Western Conference just seems to get bigger all the time. So I think that the Palmieri trade probably makes some sense that he tries to, in those early rounds tomorrow, try to find some forwards with some size. I think that's what he's trying to figure out, how to make his team bigger and faster as the West seems to get bigger and faster around him.
John, thank you. The final pick will go to a Western Conference team, the Arizona Coyotes. And you talk about a team that has a little bit of unrest around it. Well, as a franchise anyway. The final pick of the night, that final first round.
And they have a nice little young group of forwards going on right now. You think of Max Domi, you think of Duclair, you think of Strome. Lots of good young guys that they're kind of collecting right now and see if they can add to it.
Well, you're kind of torn here, aren't you? If you're Arizona, because you're thinking we need a center, we need defense. But then there's players left on the board. Sprong, we mentioned Nick Merkley, who at times was seen as a top 15 pick, still out there. So there are opportunities here maybe for them to capitalize for guys who have slipped through.
Like, when I watch Merkley play, yes, there's some concerns about his skating, but as a 17-year-old, as remarkably consistent as he's been, he has to be faced with the adversity of Leon Draisaitl coming over, taking some of his power play minutes, taking some of his 5-on-5 time. He adjusts to that. Yes, the point production went down in the second half, but as an overall team, they were better. From start to finish, from the start of the year to the end of the MasterCard Memorial Cup, be hard-pressed to find a draft-eligible player as consistent as Nick Merkley.
And to be here in the last pick of the first round and have him still on the board, Arizona's thinking, you know what? Talented guy, skill infusion, which they have not had enough of in Arizona. So if it's Merkley, it'd be a good pick.
From the WHL Kelowna Rockets, Nick Merkley.
You know, guys, Nick Merkley may be small in stature, but this kid plays a feisty game, and we saw that at the MasterCard Memorial Cup. Was talking to his head coach, Dan Lambert, a couple of weeks ago, and I said, are there any shifts this year, this season, that really stand out in your mind that typify who Nick Merkley is? He said, we were playing a game against Seattle, and he kept cutting into the middle and just narrowly getting his head taken off by big Seattle Thunderbirds defenseman. Evan Wardley's an overage, 6'3", 222-pound defenseman, caught him, but he got right back up, went to the bench, and said, Coach, don't worry, I'm not scared, and they can't hurt me.
Jeff, he was a player that admitted that he felt the pressure of his draft here early on this season.
Well, and you know, he's got an older brother who plays in the Western Hockey League and hasn't been drafted and has struggled a little bit more than Nick has, so he knows it's not an easy path. He's a player who, when you talk to scouts, they say, you say, is he a bit small? And they say, no. The smart ones seem to say he's not small, he's short. And that doesn't, and that's how you use your size. And for my money, when I've seen him play, he's a guy who uses what he has extremely well. He's a possession player. I think the question is, a little bit like Lawson Krause earlier, does he finish? He scored 20 goals, didn't finish. There's that goal scoring. Do you have it or do you not?
But he does dish.
Oh, yeah.
92 assists in 91 games for the entire season, including his playoff run. I mean, points are points. He puts them up. He finds a way to score. And the one thing I like about him is that when things aren't always going well for him, think of what Steve Stamkos did in the playoffs. He turns to play physical to spark himself as much as his team. So he's not going to shy away and drift and look for cheap points. He's going to get more engaged, get around the puck, and hope that spurs his game.
Well, when Kelowna played Rimouski in the Memorial Cup, who was the first guy to go after big 6'7" Samuel Morin? Nick Merkley.
You know, when you watch Merkley play, he plays a little bit of a heavy game because he's thick down low. But watching him overall, yes, he's a dish guy, but you have to realize he's a smart player. You're playing with Rourke Chartier. At one point, he had a goal per game through the first 48 games for the Kelowna Rockets. So why wouldn't you dish it off to a guy like that?
Because everyone loves to score. And scouts,
good point.
teams,
good point.
players love to score. Assists are good. They pay you to score.
20 goals, but 70 assists, 79 penalty minutes as well. All 30 picks have been made in the 2015 National Hockey League opening round draft. Back inside BB&T Center in Sunrise, Florida, the completion of the 2015 opening round of the NHL draft here on Sportsnet. Mike Johnson, Damian Cox, and Sam Cosentino from Friday Night Hockey, CHL on Sportsnet. I'm Darren Millard. A takeaway from tonight in which we saw so much action on the trade front. Start with you, Mike.
I think we're excited to see what was going to happen with that Toronto pick. And who were they going to take and how is that going to play itself out? And they had the option of Hanifin or Marner, the big puck-moving defenseman, the highest-rated defenseman in the draft, or the small, skillful guy that Mark Hunter, the guy whose draft this was, knows very well from the London Knights. And they went with that skill forward, dynamic player, adding to a mix and a different kind of look that the Toronto Maple Leafs are trying to build to in the future, and then jumping down and acquiring more picks in those second and third rounds going forward. It's an interesting night for Toronto Maple Leafs.
Well, the selection of Mitch Marner shows you how much things have changed in Toronto in a relatively short period of time. And the same goes for the Boston Bruins, a team that barely missed the postseason at the trade deadline, was looking to, try to get into the playoffs. Well, they are just doing a complete reboot. They become the first team in the modern era to have 3 consecutive draft picks. They trade away Dougie Hamilton to the Calgary Flames. People in Calgary are awfully excited. They trade away Milan Lucic to the Los Angeles Kings, and all of a sudden Don Sweeney, in his first crack at it, does what Jim Benning did last year, and that says, you know what, I'm not just going to sort of get warmed up as a GM, I'm going to make an impact on my first opportunity.
Well, the Ottawa Senators, I mean, talk about a roller coaster season. You look at Mark Reed's passing. You look at Eugene Melnyk going through his health issues. Brian Murray, the same thing. Then they fire their coach and they bring in Dave Cameron. All of a sudden, the hamburgers around. They're making it into the playoffs. Everything's rocking and rolling. And I think this is kind of a nice end to the season for the Ottawa Senators. They move up. They get that extra pick in the first round. They address a couple of needs with Shabbat, a good puck-moving defenseman with a high ceiling, who's an excellent skater, and they get Colin White, who is a guy who maybe slipped a little bit because of his injury-plagued season. I think the Ottawa Senators, again, in those middling picks, find a way to get something done.
George Strombolopoulos did a great job tonight with the player interviews as well as the management. He's standing by with our newsbreakers, Elliot Friedman and John Shannon.
All right, thank you very much, Darren Millard. All right, what stands out for you today with the team?
Well, I think you have to wonder what Jim Benning's going to do right now. He wanted dearly a second-round pick. He still hasn't got that. That's where the Bieksa trade to San Jose possibly fits in, and also Eddie Lack. That was supposed to happen maybe before the second round starts tomorrow. He really wants to have a second-round pick tomorrow. He needs to build depth in the Canuck chain.
Well, I think we know why he didn't get the second rounder from Buffalo, because they were using it to get Ryan O'Reilly. I mean, suddenly it makes a lot more sense now. To me, you know, obviously Edmonton, it's a huge day with Connor McDavid, but the Canadian team that wins the draft tonight is the Canadian team that didn't have a first-round pick, and that's Calgary.
Right.
They traded for Dougie Hamilton. You know, just chatting with Bob Hartley tonight, George, look at it. He can just blindly throw his defenseman on the ice next year with the 5 and 6 guys he's got there.
These are the guys that can control your Twitter life. Just follow them and they break all these stories in advance of everybody else. Thanks, guys. Great job. Back to you.
Appreciate that. Right back at you. The National Hockey League draft will continue tomorrow, but for this night, the 30 first-round picks have been made. It was teed up as a generational draft that delivered Connor McDavid. He says goodbye to his junior hockey career and hello to the NHL. His steps to the NHL have officially started. Best Friends went in the top 5 tonight, and Canadian clubs had a big impact. So did the Buffalo Sabres with Jack Eichel. 30 young men can now call themselves first-round draft picks in the National Hockey League. Sportsnet Central is next. Jamie Thompson and Ivanka Osback is next. Good night from the NHL Draft.